And just like that, we're back onto it. I still gotta do my own stuff. I still gotta do my own stuff. And today, I had to think about what I was doing here. I had to think about what I was thinking of what I was wanting to do for this, and then I had to have a second, and I was like, maybe, instead of putting a lot of pressure to get things done, I do what it really should be. And what it really should be is this is for promotional art first, and if I get any assets out of it, I'm gonna get assets out of it. I'm gonna still work and do my best to try to get assets out, but really this is for promotional work. Because honestly, the less I can pressure myself to make sure everything gets done, the more I'm actually going to get done. So welcome to the stream, everyone. I'm your host, Isaac MCCanary, and it's Saturday, and we're gonna continue working on promotional art, whatever I feel like. I honestly, I'm glad I came to that consensus on my own because, like, I was hitting a little bit of a wall there. I was hitting a little bit of a wall there, and usually for me, what that means is I need to redefine what I'm doing anything for. So I think I just need to focus on doing promotional art for now, and really keep it to what it has been excelling at for me, which is being able to give me ideas and keep me inspired and keep me working on this project, which is really what the artwork has been for me. Uh, at first, I was like, yeah, I'm going to make backdrops and stuff, but I think that will be a byproduct. It will be material to be able to say, hey, if you want to know what something kind of looks like, what I'm kind of envisioning, this is what it kind of looks like. And if I get more official artwork for it, that'll be good. But for now, all it is to be able to remind myself what I'm working on, to keep myself inspired to keep working on it, and to keep adding material to it. So welcome to the stream, everyone. I'm your host, Isaac MCCanary. I'm preparing for October, which is quickly approaching. It's already a month away, which is terrifying to me a little bit. But it's already a month away. I have a lot to work to do, and I'm gonna have probably at least 1 week where I'm not gonna get to do work on it. So I have a lot of work that I still need to do. I've gotten a lot. I'm ready. I think I'm ready. As soon as I have session 0 done, I'll have the rest of the things that I need to do, and then I'll just go. I'll just go. Right now, I've been working a lot on. Uh, I've been working a lot um, on other things. I picked up a project, which is fair. Kind of needed to. Um, I did need to pick up that project, but I'm also still working on plenty of other things, and needing to work on this, honestly, is just adding to the list. Trying to think where I want to start. Where I want to start, honestly, where I want to start is here. And this might be just something that I'm going to kind of start today. Give myself like a little bit of inspiration. If I'm gonna work on anything, I do know one of the main backdrops I want to start with is right here. You'll, you'll see why. It'll probably become clear why here in a moment. Because really, if I do this correctly, it should be one easiest parts of this. The reason why, because it has just one subject. And the whole purpose of it is to illustrate one of the main, at least one of the main first things I want to establish in this setting. You ready? This should be the first thing that my players see. This is, no matter what, if this is the only backdrop I do, this should be the first thing my players see, no matter what. You'll see why. Bob Ross for a second. I want this to be the first thing that my players see, because if there's anything that I've really pulled on my viewing and reviewing of the Alien movies, Alien and Aliens, one of the main things that's scary about that movie is more of the premise than just the stakes. The xenomorph is terrifying, and the corporate stuff is scary. But there's actually one more important thing that's scary about the setting of Alien, and it is the fact that it takes place in space. I gotta be. Hold on, I gotta focus up for a second. There we go. Just gotta be willing. Take my time. A lot of material that I gotta add. Gotta Bob Ross it. The thing that you have to remember about Bob Ross is Bob Ross isn't fast because he paints fast. Bob Ross is fast because when he paints, he actually takes his time in such a specific way that he's gotten very, very proficient at what he did. So he had the control to be able to just lay down something in like 1 or 2 goes. And it's important to remember that about his process. Like he was quick because he took his time. He had a lot of control in his work. Don't worry, we know he's there. This is why he always starts back first and then moves forward. It's just something that I'm trying to teach myself. It's taken me a lot of time to try to learn that. I know that's there. This should be the first thing. This should be the first thing that my players see. Ooh, I like that effect, actually. Tracing here. One of the things I like about this is the idea that all you see are even lights, at best, on the actual spaceship. This is all you can see. This is the first thing I want my players to see, to really kind of get a sense of what they're getting into. It's also going to be the inciting incident, because one of the things that I was not very good at, one of the things that I am good at, but one of the things I struggled with at the same time on this first session, actually, was that I was able to make a really good leading session, but not a really good reason for my players to be there. And I want to do a little bit better job of that. And this time I want to. I feel like I'm my opening sessions of any game have always been like some of my strongest. Like I really appreciate a lot of the feedback I've gotten on that. My friends typically have really liked a lot of the session ones that I run, because usually when I run a session one, I run a fucking session one. My session ones are usually very intense by design, and they really focus on what kind of tone I'm going for. One of the things that I do definitely want to do with this one is I want it to still be, and usually what I gravitate towards design-wise that I know I'm really, really good at is actually action. Action is something that I'm really, 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 really good at. So, whilst this is a survival horror game, and this will have a focus on survival horror, I do want there to be survival action in it as well. So there will be moments of survival action, and I think that one of the things that works well in stuff like this, in pacing, to break up pacing, is like I like ranges between high action and really slow contemplative parts. I really do. That's something that I really like to put into my work. So one of the things that I'm going to really start. Wow, this took 2 seconds. This is the first thing, though. This is the first thing I want my players to see. This will be the introduction to the game. Guys, can you tell why? Can you tell why? Can you tell why this is why I want the first thing my players to see to establish what's scary about the setting? You guys figure it out? It's not a secret. Space. Space. It's space. You know, honestly, that's done. That's fucking done. I don't think I need to do more to that. But this is the opening shot. This will be the opening shot. This will be the first thing that my players see. It'll probably be the first thing that anyone sees for a while, depending on if I. So again, the goal is I want it to be promotional art first. Even if you know what, even if I have to use the concept art for a while before I make like official shots, I think that's fine too. Maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe we just work off of concept art for a while. That could be its own kind of aesthetic and make sure that I keep things moving and I keep things made. Because again, like I want official graphics. Hey, that one that I did last week, granted, I could tell that also I was having a bit of a rough time that week. I don't know what happened, but it was whatever. But in a certain sense, I learned a pretty valuable lesson. That didn't work. Honestly, I was not happy with it. Even if it looked good to other people, the amount of work that I actually put into that piece was not worth the time that I took on it. I should have switched to something else. And if I want to try a different style, I have an idea that I know works. That's the big thing, is I know it works. Really, I should save trying new things to less important projects or on my own. I was trying that oil painting thing and kept on trying to make it work. That's another thing that I have to admit is a really difficult skill to train. Learn how to recognize when you need to start doing something different and you need to throw your art away. Because sometimes you will just work on something and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't matter even if it subjectively looks good to other people. If it's not working for the person making it, it's not going to work fully. You know, if you're putting that much more work into something, you're better off scrapping and starting from scratch because it means that you found a dead end, and finding a dead end just means that you need to turn around and find a different direction. That applies to art. That absolutely applies to art. I love the idea though that the main things only things that you can see here, things coming off ship. But the ship itself, I actually want to be a little bit darker. Like there's outside lights to like show that it's there, but really I really want to illustrate with this that like that feeling of isolation, that feeling of space big and space empty. That's the big important thing. Is space big and space empty. That when you are in space, If you find something else, you're lucky. Like predominantly when you are in space, there is nothing around you. There is nothing else. That's what I want to establish with this shot. That's what I want to establish with this feeling is that when you are in space, space is scary because it's space. Because it is the ocean times affinity, right? There's the VOD title. That was good. You know what? I'm feeling good today. That was a great start. This is a great start to the stream. No fucking lie. Like I I honestly was not prepared to immediately come out of the breach from last week, which again, I think I was being a little bit harsh on myself. Sometimes you are your worst own critic, but I am the one staring at it the most and I am the one working on it, so it's hard for me not to be like not working. Uh actually, I thought that was something else. Uh-oh. 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 Almost made a whoopsie. Almost make it a big oopsie. How did I copy that? When did I copy that? Is what I want to know. But yeah, that hallway, I'm probably just going to trash. It's wadded up into a ball, thrown into a bin. I'm not going to work on it anymore, and I'm going to do something else with it. I'm going to do something different. Because what I have to remind myself is that two things. If as long as I'm doing stuff like this and making forward momentum, I'm making forward momentum. The other thing I need to remind myself, and if this is the aesthetic, honestly, if this is the aesthetic, I might just go with this. I might just keep working on the concept pieces and make them look like this. Like, I think this looks good. I don't. Maybe it shouldn't have color. Maybe it should feel black and white, because a part of it I want it to feel like is that kind of found footage feeling, right? I really want to give it that found footage feeling of like of having the um the kind of static snow and stuff. Like I love that feeling. Like this looks good. I like this. Really the biggest it goes. Yeah, anybody who knows me, I love doing a vignette. I love doing a vignette. I can't help myself when it comes to vignettes. A vignette it a little. Make space look scary. The goal is to make space look scary. Because that's the thing. This is something that I learned that now I've kind of matured a little bit, right? I've matured a little bit in my own writing, especially my horror writing, having reviewed Alien much more closely and a couple more times, and also looking at things like Signalis, looking at things like even Silent Hit. If I really start examining other things, like no horror piece, serious or not, only tackles with like one singular theme. And when I was first working on this project back in 2017, when we were working, when I was just wanting to run a tabletop game with my friends, like also, I wonder how this is gonna look. Oh, it looks bad. You can't see it. Looks like I'm gonna have to make have to make the evil version of my It looks like I have to make the evil version of my my handle. Oh yes. Let me see. Surely, can I just invert you? Can I just invert this? Let me just invert this. Hold on, I have an idea. Can I just hold on? Hold on. Hang on. Probably not, knowing this. This is not a this is not a graphic manipulation program. This is a drawing program. This is Adobe's drawing program. It probably doesn't have an invert. Because why would it actually? It's not meant to do that. Hide one of these. Do that first. Honestly, what I probably need to do. Yeah, I know what to do. I could be a clever. I could be a clever person. It's really quite simple, actually. Take the magic wand. You select. Invert. Direction. Take the funny dump. You take the funny dump, and you dump white. Damn. That easy. Honestly, I don't even know if I needed to do that, but late for regrets now. It kind of ensures that it actually gets done right. Marching ants. Give me my marching ants. I hate change. Alright, that fixed that. Yep, that fixes that. I just needed a white. I just needed a white overlay so that way I could get that when I do the signature. I hate how hard I worked last time. You guys saw I took 4 hours to feel like I did nothing, and then in the first 20 minutes I have made immediately the thing that I needed to make. I don't understand. I don't understand why I'm this way. It does piss me off just a little bit, but I do have to accept it to a certain level that this is how I function. This is just how I get shit done. I either do or I don't. I wished I knew how to make. I've gotten more on the side of the do side, but I still have my don't days, and I don't know why. No, this came out great. I'm really happy with this. Like, this was done. Just done. 2 seconds. I hate it. I hate it. I hate that this is how I work and operate. Sometimes it makes no sense to me. I pissed off my cat by screaming too much. Hated it. Well, I might as well do more promo art then. Seconds. I mean, to be fair, this isn't the most complex. This isn't the most complex piece, and this is what I like about art. Is for me, anytime I do want to get better at detail. I want to get better at making complex things, but actually, simple is best for me. If I can keep it simple, that is better. Like, I don't like overworking pieces. I like keeping it as simple as possible. I like keeping it grounded. I like keeping things as uncomplex as possible because God knows I'll make it complex over time, but that doesn't mean that I right out the bat want to be as complicated as possible. I actually want straightforward. Straightforward works better. Straightforward works better. And if something contradicts, usually the best thing to do is to cut the thing that you added that immediately and try to think of another thing to do with it. Like, don't overcomplicate it. The more you overcomplicate something, you just are risking messing it up, in my experience. It's better to just let it be. It's better to let it be. Hi, sir. Whew, I didn't mean to scare you there. My bad. Sorry. I actually did not mean to scare you. Sorry. That was my bad. Got my pen on my cat. But yeah, I'm really happy with this. This came out perfect. I'm just mad that sometimes that's how it goes. I'm just mad that's sometimes how it goes, okay? work on something really, 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 really hard and for a while, and then it doesn't seem to click, and then next time you do something in 2 seconds, and you're just like, why couldn't I do that last time? Ugh. Ew. I'll try to work on this a little bit more. What the hell? Oh, I see what. I mean, this was the good work that I did last week, honestly. I'm very happy with how this came out. Mostly. I think there's some, like, I started getting here, and I was like, I can't. I'm getting too tired. One of the things I kind of want to change is this part, though. I don't actually want it to be that wide. I like a more sleek design, personally. So we're going to cut this down a little bit. Yeah, more like that. Because what I need is enough space for... I need enough space for landing gear. I want to imagine that the landing gear swing down this way. You have a central landing gear, and then you have landing gear going down that way. So I just need enough space that it would make sense that landing gear would fit in there. Sometimes it just goes, it just bees that way. Just bees that way. Sleeping enough, you ain't tired. This needs to be thinner, actually. Do something more like this. Yeah, I could not do freehand straight lines last time. That was also something that I was like, oh, I'm really tired. It happens. To the best of us, just gotta go again. This is something I want to change. This, I want to be thicker. I don't want that to narrow down. I want this part to be nice and chunky. I like me a nice chunky front end. I don't know why. Don't take that out of context. But I do. I do. I really do. I think it works well whenever you have something kind of like thicker like this. It really gives a lot more. I also like a very utilitarian look. I like a lot of like really really functional, really blocky. I like really really blocky personally. Very blocky is very nice. Hello, hello, squid. Ah, is my shit still busted? I need to. I keep forgetting. I'm gonna do this after the stream. I have to remind. I have to make a note because my alerts are broken because I got fucking shuffled around on accident. Hold on. Welcome. Hello. My shit is all sorts of whack. Hold on. This is what happens when shit decides to be stupid. Else. gonna fit this to screen for a second. Then I gotta go here. I'm just gonna make. I'm just there. I wish there was a way. Actually, there should be a way. Hold on. Isn't there a way? Play. What? Can you not resend alerts? Oh, you could. I can report you, but I don't want to do that. I just want to resend your raid. Do. There we go. Activity feed controls. The hell? There we go. Goddamn. There we go. That's more of what I want, though now it's being really weird. The hell? Why is it doing that? Hey. Hey, OBS, why did you do that? Sorry, guys. We're going on an adventure. I don't know why OBS is being so weird right now. Here, I have to move that, I think. That's stupid. There you go. There you go. Hey, hello, Squid. Welcome. I have to fix my alerts because they got fucked up one day. It was my bad. I know exactly what happened. It just sucks. Anyways, I'm gonna go back to this. Just doing more work on my tabletop. And you know what? Fuck it. I want this to be solid. I want this to be bigger. No, I don't. Maybe thinner? I'm just thinking. I'm just thinking. But welcome, Squid. Let me get the rest of the shit out. What were you up to? What have you done? What did you do? More Final Fantasy 3. Nice. What's funny is we played something last night that Jackson ended up showing me the the funny suplex. Jackson showed me the funny suplex, which I think that's, I mean, technically 6, but it depends on what. So were you playing 3 or were you playing Japanese 3? Were you playing 3 or were you playing 3? This is the question. Break out my favorite tool. There we go. Sometimes you just gotta start trying stuff. You're playing wait. You were playing Falcom 3. You were playing Falcom 3? You're playing Ys? That's the only, well, that's not true. I was about to say that's the only Falcom game I know. No, that's not true. I know about Trails in the Sky as well. Which Trails in the Sky got an update got a I need to ask Jackson about that cuz Trails in the Sky got a remaster fairly recently actually. So I might have to be like, "Hey, you want to get in on that cuz like I do think I ever want to go back and finish no, oh, well, censored. Wonder what they censored them for. It would depend on what the censorship was for, because that would not. Nothing about that game really spoke to me that it would get any grossness about it, so I don't know why they would do that. That is kind of weird, but also we didn't get that far. We didn't even. I don't think we got out of the first town, but honestly, the way that game is structured, from what I remember, you kind of spend a lot of time in that first town, but Actually, one of the things I really liked about Trails in the Sky, even compared to contemporary works like Final Fantasy and stuff, is like we've been playing Xenogears, right? And I've enjoyed Xenogears, and I think that game, writing wise, is a complete spaghetti mess. Whereas what I remember of Trails in the Sky, it was pretty solid. It was just a really solid character driven narrative. Like I didn't it didn't dip for me, and we got a decent way through. It felt like we were maybe a quarter through the game at best. Like we spent a lot of time in that first town. So, yep, you good. Go do your thing. I'll just talk about Falcom. Um but yeah, I remembered us getting a decent portion through that game, and like I gotta say, like, I remember it pretty fondly. I remember it being pretty good and pretty fun. So I still am curious. It is a bummer if that happens, because like when that happens, it's like, come on, guys, just let it be. Censorship is not a good thing. It's just not a good thing. I'm not there is very little argument that I could make to be even devil's advocate. It's just 9 times out of 10 not a good thing. Mainly, it's more of a sign of whenever censorship starts really cropping up is a problem less of what is being censored and more of what it could devolve into. Once you start censoring one thing, you start censoring everything, and that's more of a problem than anything else. Not everything deserves to be censored. Some things deserve to have mature themes in them. Start censoring one thing, you start censoring things like Silent Hill because it has sexual themes, when the sexual themes are the whole point. You know? You're not supposed to feel good about the sexual themes in Silent Hill. You're supposed to feel unnerved and uncomfortable about them, but they're not explicit. That's the important thing, is it's not explicit. Just because it's adult content doesn't mean something... Adult content does not equal explicit. Explicit equals whether or not the content itself is indicatively upsetting. Do they go out of their way to make you upset in a way that it is just gross? Or are they just exposing you to upsetting imagery and themes in a way that you would normally not be exposed to? That's usually the big difference. Exactly. And vice versa. You know? Something that has adult... more see, that's the problem with saying, like, does it have adult content in it? And it's like, eh, really? Right? Like, it's tough. It's tough. And that's not even to say that being adult means now, oh yeah, you could handle that shit. No. Like, I don't think this is one thing that's important to remember is if you're not into horror, if you're not into upsetting themes, if you're not into that shit, like, you don't have to be. It just has to be. You shouldn't. At this point, we're all fucking adults. You should be able to make the call on something. You can't be surprised. People can't be surprised anymore. They can't be like, oh no, I wasn't expecting this 40 minutes into this movie. Oh, gee, Silent Hill. Oh, God, I wasn't expecting that. And I'm only 50% through the game. Silent Hill is not... Silent Hill is subtle for what it needs to be subtle for, and it's not subtle for the things that it doesn't need to be subtle about. You can't be surprised. It's pretty explicit about what it wants to be about. I would say. I would say it starts hitting you with those themes pretty early on. It's not exactly a secret. What's important to remember for the mystery of Silent Hill is, like, its discussion about the themes. That's the mystery. The mystery isn't what the fuck the game's about. The mystery isn't about why is James Sunderland so cagey about his wife. The game is about exploring James Sunderland's denial of why he's so cagey about his wife. It's not a secret. It's not a secret to me, anyways. I mean, it's a good reveal at the end of the game. That's the mystery part. But they don't like sugar. It doesn't come out of nowhere. It's there from the very beginning. Which I will maintain. I will try to be about with this game a little bit, and I want to like be vocal about it, both with my players and with anybody watching. Is like, yeah, like there's not a 0% chance that this game isn't still influenced by some of its original inspiration. So note, like, there's gonna be a decent helping of body horror regarding some pretty grisly stuff because I've spent a lot of time processing some pretty grisly stuff about my own fucking body. Yeah, that plays an influence. Fun fact, artists are influenced by the things that they feel. But I do want to like try to be like, okay, now how do I make this actually approachable to a public audience and not just gross? Because that's the thing is like I don't actually want it to be gross, and I want it to be constructive. I want it to show that it's been constructive. Fun fact: good horror is actually constructive about its most upsetting topics. Case in point, Babadook. Babadook is incredibly good as a piece of horror media because it actually has kind of a positive message takeaway. Kind of. Like that's the point, right? Like you're supposed to step away from the Babadook. At least I did, anyways. Like being like, oh, the horror didn't go away, but that doesn't mean that you step away from that movie just feeling like you had a bad time. It actually has a pretty positive message at the end of it, I would say, regarding things like regarding mental health and stuff. Like it actually has a pretty positive message about like, hey, it's if you're struggling with it, the best thing you could do for yourself is to do something about it, but not just be a victim to your own wavering mental health. That's a huge thing that the Babadook talks about. So like the best horror media, if it's really examining some tough topics, does actually try to be like, now this is what you do about it. Adult game can have boobs and swearing, but that does not mean it's a mature game. Exactly. And a mature game doesn't need to have boobs and swearing and still be about mature stuff. That isn't necessarily for kids. Go do your. No, go do your. I don't mean to hold you. Trying to figure out how to do this. Do I want it to flare a little bit? I don't know. I'm working on this a little bit just to see if I can. I might do something else here in a bit. In one rant video, that adult media has the entire breadth of the human experience to explore, and the majority of it is sex and swearing. I'd say a good portion of it. I wouldn't say the majority of it, but I do think a a portion. It's still a portion of it. The majority of the human experience is so vast that also flip side a counter argument that I don't think it's even the majority. I just think it's a thing. It's a thing. So yeah, it's a good fucking game. I highly recommend it, especially if you want to check out what this project is for. Like it's no secret. It's no secret. Again, horror isn't a secret. Good mysteries aren't actually a secret. Good mysteries are about um giving your viewers they're much more about suspense. They're much more about trying to keep your viewers guessing as much as possible in a certain sense. This ruler is kind of unwieldy. But good mysteries, good horror is just about exploring unsavory topics, especially if it's like specifically supposed to be very heady horror. This is the thing that I also want to maintain is that I want to split the difference here because for the purposes of what I'm running is still going to be more on the entertainment side. And this is the thing. This is the thing that I think that the best horror splits the difference in understanding still that it is entertainment. Horror is still entertainment. I do think that you can the best horror works in its most serious topics into an entertaining piece of media. And what I mean by that is you are the best pieces of media in general are entertaining first, and then they bury more serious topics that are approachable, that are there, that are being discussed by the piece of media, and that are there to like start exposing people to generally more serious ideas and topics. I feel like the thing that comes to mind for me actually, that I know that Sean and I have discussed, that I think it makes sense. It totally makes sense. I totally agree with him on it. His go-to example for this kind of concept is actually Ava. Ava is a good example. Ava is a very good example of this. The reason why Ava is a good example of this is that Evangelion is still entertaining. It's still got hype elements to it. It still has elements of the media that align with being more approachable to people. But it succeeds where it succeeds is that it then implements very serious, very cerebral and very contemplative things around those more entertaining, more pulpy parts. Adding pulp to a piece of serious media is good for the serious media. It is. This is the reason why, to go back to Babadook. Babadook is super entertaining at points. We still have, in my friend group, our favorite no-context joke, which out of context in context in the movie is a pretty serious scene, but out of context is pretty funny. Like, it's a funny thing to say to anyone, let alone a child. And if you haven't seen the Babadook, I won't spoil the context then, because it's funnier out of context to hear this bit that we're obsessed with, where the main character, who's having a bad time, turns around to her son, who's like kind of like being a kid and being a little bit obnoxious about something because he's a kid. She just turns around to him and just goes, "Well, if you're so hungry, why don't you just eat shit?" And it's just something about the way that that's delivered is so fucking dumb. It's so dumb to us. It's so funny because it just comes out of nowhere, and it is a serious, like, the kid is just like confused. He just looks stunned. He's just like, "I'm just saying I was hungry. I don't know what to tell you." Like, that's the thing. It's like entertaining. It's like a serious moment, and it's something that works to the themes and the things that are going on in the film. But in a vacuum, it's just kind of funny. It's just kind of entertaining. It's just weird. It's just silly in a certain sense. Like, you can't help but laugh at it a little bit. And for me, any piece of media, even if it covers serious topics, is entertaining. It wants to be entertaining, I think. The best media wants to be entertaining, and the serious parts that are added there for texture. They're added there to explore something. They're added there because the artist behind it still wants to see something. But the artist also kind of wants to have some fun every now and then in their piece. And that's what I want out of this. Is like, I think that I probably am being a little harsh on myself when I say this. Like, when I first was working on this, I was both going through a pretty bad time and also wanted to make, like, I wanted to make a scarier fucking Dead Space, because Dead Space I kind of get has a little bit of a bad rap in that it just tries to scream in your face. So I wanted to make a Dead Space that didn't have jump scares, but still was like scary and still had like contained like a lot of what I liked about Dead Space. I feel like Dead Space, and it does. I think that is a criticism of Dead Space. That doesn't mean I dislike Dead Space. I like Dead Space. I think Dead Space is an incredibly entertaining and pretty good horror, especially Dead Space 1 remake. They did a lot to curb it, I think. I think Dead Space 1's remake is a good example of how you remake something and kind of like take in stride some of the criticism. I think it does a little bit better capturing the atmosphere it kind of wanted to go for originally, I think anyways. And it does a little bit better at being scarier for it. I think that's something that Dead Space 1 really struggled with, was like, it wanted to be scary, but the only way it knew to be scary was to scream in your face. And I think we're at a point that most people kind of agree that if the only way you can try to scare someone is to scream in your face, you don't know how to scare somebody. It is a way to scare somebody, but it's not a very good way to scare someone. um, the scariest things are the things that make you think, that make you use your brain, which is probably why, like, a lot of horror doesn't work for people, because the best horror tries to make you think about why something is scary and not just scary thing. And you know, puts you in scary places and makes you have to really uh uh get in the um place of a scary, both a scary idea and concept as well as like scary uh uh just things, just scary things, just scary things. But yeah, I think that originally, though, I was taking myself even a little bit too seriously. I never would say that at any point I've gotten so serious that I started getting edgy about it. Like, I was like, I don't want to be edgy. I just want it to be much more contemplative. I wanted a much more contemplative experience. I wanted to try to expand on the things that I liked about Dead Space and make them much more heady, make them much more cerebral. But I think I went too far. I do think I went too far. I didn't really get to explore it as much as I wanted to, but it doesn't mean that I wasn't constantly writing with that in mind. And I think that ended up making it a little bit more of a negative experience than even I intended to. So really, I want this to focus on first feeling more like The Thing, feeling more like Alien, feeling more like stuff like that, where the first threat is the threat. It's the idea that space is scary. It's the idea that the great being out in space and it being a frontier is kind of unnerving and kind of terrifying, right? Like, it's a scary place to be, is space. Space is a scary place to be. That is the first thing I want to be explored first. Second, I want the threat to feel like the alien threat. I want it to feel like you are being pitted against something that is difficult to understand, and even if it's more Dead Spacey in that it clearly is utilizing the thing kind of like finding the horror in making monsters out of people, I still want it to be about that, of like the thing that I like about Alien very much is that even if the alien itself is kind of a slasher, traditional slasher monster, they do a pretty good job, in my opinion, of making the alien feel threatening, not because it's a perfect killing machine, but because in and of itself, it is also in a survival situation. It understands that if it gets caught, it also, I'll see you guys here in 3 minutes. Well, I'll see anybody who doesn't have an ad blocker or subscribed in 3 minutes. And it'll give me a minute to be able to drink some. But Alien um, is much more about it goes two ways. The survival element goes both ways. The alien is just in as much of a survival situation as the people in the situation. That's why I remembered kind of cluing in on this when I was younger, but not necessarily, I think, understanding why this was an important part of Alien. Is that the alien doesn't feel so much to me, anyways, like it's um, just a calculated murderer, and it doesn't feel like it's doing what it's doing to like just like viciously kill the members and like eat them, right? Like there's a very directed feeling that the alien is equally doing this out of a sense of self-preservation. Like it's doing it and you can pick up on that. You can't pick up on anything else because it's alien, but you can understand one thing. It doesn't want to die either. And the only way it knows how to survive is making sure that it's the only thing alive. And they do that without a single line of dialogue, and the only dialogue about it is Ash's rambling right before he dies. It's the only thing that you hear about what they think the alien is. He calls it the perfect organism, and I think that that also helps to kind of remind the viewers that it is a living thing. That the xenomorph is also a living thing. It isn't just a mindless, murderous entity. It is a living thing that is trapped on this space station. I don't know what Nostromo is supposed to be because I don't think Nostromo is supposed to be a ship necessarily. It's kind of a ship. I guess it's the space rig, right? Like it's the space traveling part of a two-part thing because I guess they have the landing craft, which is something I need to consider. That's a good idea, actually. Like that might be. I didn't consider that. This might just be the landing craft. I might take that into account. I don't think I'm going to. Well, it depends. Thank you, Alien. I just now clicked onto why the Nostromo is the way that it is. I never considered that. The Nostromo is kind of more like the in between of a space station and a spaceship. Like, I think it's more on the spaceship side, but because it's so big, it can't physically land on the planet. Like, what I've drawn here is like a landing craft. This is like what comes out of a larger thing. So we might start a new design, actually, as soon as the ads end. I never considered that because that yeah if it's like essentially like a hangar it's like a hangar, right? um it's just there to facilitate space travel. It's just there to make sure that you get from one planet to the other. It's not actually a thing that does the landing. I never considered that. So we might work on that next, is whatever my players are going to be using for space travel. I imagine that this is what they were going to be using for space travel, but I actually kind of like that better because this is supposed to be smaller. It's supposed to be more contained. It's supposed to be the way that you get from point A to point B. I like the idea that they use a larger space platform, kind of like the Nostromo, to do the actual space travel. Okay, we're going to do that. Hold on. You get two spaceships. You get two spaceships. Just do I just want to go simple? Or do I just want to go and make them a boy ball? I don't think I'm gonna make a boy ball. But I do like that idea. I never considered that because it always confused me, right? I was always like, why something about it was like, why did they need what is the Nostromo supposed to be? Because it doesn't look like a spaceship, which I do like that about it. It doesn't look like a spaceship, and I don't think it's supposed to. I don't think it's supposed to. It's supposed to look like the like space part of a spaceship. It's like more focused on being a space entity. So I'm going to actually, I know what I'm going to do. Sperm whale. Work off nature. Make it a big engine. Make it like 90% engine. And it has a big fuck. And this is the space transport. This is what is normally used for space transport. Just meant to be able to go. I just never considered that. I don't know why I never considered that that's what the Nostromo was supposed to be all along. And this, I want it to feel pretty massive. I want it to feel pretty massive. Like, got that. Got this here. And maybe even given the way that the setting works, the way that I want the setting to work, is a lot of the setting has gotten to a point of utilitarianism that it's like they try to dual function or try to cut down on cost, which is an important part of this of the setting. They try to maximize how much any given thing can do. So like I don't think that the game itself is going to start on this. Or if it does, it'll be very, very brief. Or if it does, it'll be like a very brief vignette. Actually, I want it to start on the shuttle. The shuttle is what they're using to get to where they're going. But this, if they start on this thing, if they start on this big fucking thing, it's either going to be one of two things. It's either going to be filled with people, like other people, like they just this thing just moves through space. It just travels through space carrying people like a gigantic bus that holds everyone's shuttles and everything that people are going to. So if there are people on this, there might be like maybe one other, two other shuttles. That's something I will consider. This is why I'm doing it this way. All of this artwork is to get me to think about the setting. It's getting me to think about how do people get around, what is the science fiction behind it. All of this concept art is here to help me process what the game is going to look like. And hi, Slime. Uh, Hello, Slime. Working on my survival horror game. My ruler. Where is my ruler? Why is it not appearing? Ah, we'll be playing. I also will be doing a tabletop thing later. Actually, every we've been doing tabletop recently, which has been very, very nice. It's reason why I'm like I really, really, really am excited to be running. This is going to be for a game. This is going to be for a game. I'm trying to build. At first, I will admit, when I originally was working on this, I was like, this is going to be for asset design. And it still is, but not for the asset design I thought it was going to be for. Essentially, at this point, I'm making promotional art, and I'm making context art. What I mean by that is it's primarily going to be concept art first. I might use them for backgrounds or for context in the setting, but largely speaking, the media I really need to make sure to have done before by the time I run my game. I don't know why my ruler is missing. That's gonna bug me. Oh, there it is. What the hell? Going down. There we go. I can reveal that now. The system is called Mothership. If you guys want to start looking at it, actually, this is a fun thing. If you want to check out Mothership's website, they have the player survival guide, which is the player handbook, for free, and you can look at it. And I would say, having now absorbed myself into it, you do not need the Warden's handbook to start running a game. You just need the player's handbook. If you ever want to try it, can just run the player's handbook. The modules and everything are just for flavor and to give you a little bit more context on what you can do, but it's absolutely possible to play just out of the Mothership's player survival guide. So I highly recommend anybody out there who wants to start getting an idea of what the system we are going to be running is, pick up the player's survival guide and feel free to read through it and feel free to check it out. It's a really cool game. I'm really excited to check it out. And I've been doing a lot of good work over the last 2 months. I started work in July, I believe. I know what month comes before September. In August, I know what month comes before September, is when I started this. And hopefully, we will start in October. We will go for the length of October, and then seeing how the game goes, we will decide if we want to keep going, if we want to do something else, because we've got 8 billion projects that we're working on right now. But I've been wanting to do a live play again for a while. It's been about a year. The last time we did a live play was actually last October when we started Heart, which I feel like was going really, really well. And I wanted to be like, fuck it. I want to see a live play happen. It's my turn. This is my fucking channel. No, I'm not that mean. This is a group effort. Me and my friends, I would say this is absolutely a group effort between us. I was like, I've wanted to run more tabletop. I've wanted to run more tabletop in general. Like I have the least experience of my friends at actually running games. I've only run 3 games, 4 games technically. None of them I finished, and none of them went. The longest running one was only 5 sessions still, over a pretty long period of time too, just because I was busy and my friends were busy. So, which happens. But this Mothership game is a survival horror sci-fi game that I will be running in Mothership. And the thing that I really like about this system, as I have been getting absorbed in it, and as I've been reading it and looking into it, one, yes, it's very much has the DNA of Call of Cthulhu. I would say I've only played one Call of Cthulhu game. It's got that DNA, but the big things that it does that I really like is it tries to limit it. One thing it does is it tries to limit crunch. Another, it tries to alleviate crunch off of the DM side. So it really is actually trying to utilize kind of a crunchier system more in line with the Power by the Apocalypse. One of the things that I like about the Power by the Apocalypse is the DM does very little math. And the DM does no rolling, which I'm going to take in stride and be like, if I ever have to roll anything, I fucked up. Good DMs do not need to roll. Hot take. Good DMs do not need to roll. Obviously, D&D, you can't really do that, but good systems, the DM should not actually ever have to roll once. They should never have to roll, or roll very little. Or if they do have to roll, it has nothing to do with what's going on screen. And Mothership, I feel like you can do that. You can at least channel that, from what I've seen of it. Anyways, Mothership does a couple things that I really, really like, that I really, really appreciate. One of them is that a lot of Mothership is about trying to hold the tension of a situation. It's very much Alien, The Thing. It's trying to be a sci-fi horror with a focus on creatures and intense situations. It's a horror game. It's designed to be a horror game. So a lot of the mechanics are much more focused on that, as well as trying to keep things more simple. So, exactly. All of your die rolls, all of your DCs are based on your actual skills, and I fucking love that. There is nothing more frustrating, in my opinion, than feeling like you have a character designed to do something, and it just feels like they never actually do it. Because either A, they're never put in the situation, or B, when they are put in a situation, they're put in challenge levels that are still always a little bit harder than what they're actually capable of. This game takes that question right out and says, your guy is capable, for one, and the only times that they roll are when they're trying to do something that isn't easy, they're trying to do something that they're not equipped for, or they're trying to do something under intense pressure. That is what rolls are, so you're actually rolling against your competency, and your DC never changes. The only thing the DM can do to impart on your DC is to say that you get a plus 10 or minus 10. The number never fucking changes, though. You know what your DCs are, you know what you need to make, and you know when you succeed and when you fail. Takes that question right out. I don't need to tell you if you succeed or fail. You know if you succeed or fail. I love the transparency of the system because the system really wants to make it clear that the things that the RP should be focused on is roleplay, and that the crunch of the game really comes down to more of the nitty-gritty of a specific situation rather than trying to make the narrative, make the role-playing also the rolling part of the game, which it is a more role-heavy game, which really resonates with me and my friends. We're very role-play-heavy players. If anything, I've gotten to the point that if I can avoid rolling dice to solve a situation, I fucking will. Because God knows the dice fucking hate me. I do not roll good in a game. I have never rolled good in a game. My rolls are almost ubiquitously always bad, with very, 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 very rare occasions where they're actually good. Anytime that I've went, I'll let the dice do the talking. The dice sure did talk. The dice sure did talk. That's my experience with more dice-heavy gameplay, is that I always regret it. I always regret dice-heavy gameplay on my end. If you are better at it, which I guess you can be, people can be better at it, but you've had 2 sessions of D&D back-to-back where less than a quarter of your rolls were above 10 on a D20. Exactly. It never feels good. And this game really does want you to try to focus. For starters, there are no roll checks for interacting with your environment. As far as, like, you don't have an investigation check, you don't have a charisma check, you don't have anything like that. It's all roleplay based. I actually think that's a really good thing. If you're going to be in that situation, you actually have to be willing to try to talk it out. And if it goes sour because you couldn't talk it out. But you can't just roll a dice and say, what does the dice say, to give me an idea of what I say. Like, you actually do have to try to engage with that, which I like. I do like that element, because very much a lot of the DM, or the GM, the warden, as this game has contextualized it, is very conversation-based. It's very conversation-based, much in line with things like Powered by the Apocalypse. If you are tired of a game like D&D, where you get roll fucked every 5 seconds, I highly recommend trying out Powered by the Apocalypse. Powered by the Apocalypse has really informed how me and my friends play games now in the future for the better. It has been an improvement, I feel like. We focus a lot less on just making die rolls, and we focus much more on the conversation of tabletop. Because what I keep telling myself, and what I've been experiencing through a lot more live play. I've been watching and listening to a lot of live play to get myself some ideas, as well as to give myself some ideas on, like, what people do right, what people do wrong. Nobody's perfect. I've pretty much binged Roll20, or not Roll20, Dimension 20, and I've binged Amnesty for the Adventure Zone, which was quite good. And then I've actually gone back and finally gone back and started rewatching with a little bit more clarity and a little bit more focus. Been re-listening to the Balance arc, which is also quite good. That Powered by the Apocalypse does a really good job of making the game about a conversation rather than making it a game about dice rolls. And it does that through two things. The dice rolls that you do make are informative. They really try to make it a point that they give you a talking point rather than just saying what your character does or tells you that you now need to contextualize what the dice say. They try to make it they try to give you the player's choices to make a conversation about what you're dealing with, rather than making it about just, here's the results, you get it or you don't. A big thing that Powered by the Apocalypse does super well is failing a roll rarely ever leads to nothing happening, which also Mothership leans into, which I want to lean into hard because I have an idea. Since it is a D percentile, they say, like, make it a percent. Like, there are degrees of success. You do have to kind of whiff it a little bit. You gotta come up with that scale on your own. They don't give you something, but they do say you should try to contextualize it based on how good you do. A near success means, or a near failure means that you almost succeeded. So maybe you get a little progress. Maybe you do actually finish what you do, but there's a negative consequence, right? Same flip side. You have a near success, so maybe there's a little bit of a consequence for it. Like, you contextualize it a little bit more. You kind of play around your D percentile. You don't just succeed or fail. They make it a point that you should not do that. Avoid doing that if you can. And I want to kind of like take that and run, because one of the things that I think is a bit controversial. It's a bit controversial due to the nature of turn-based systems, is the concept of a turn. It is really hard, in my opinion, to design a good-feeling turn base. Like, if you have a super dexy guy and you nat 1, you feel bad that your -2 dex cleric goes before you. You just feel bad about that. Powered by the Apocalypse solves that by saying it is a contextual turn order. You just kind of go in the order round robin of starting with the person that would make the most sense to start with, like just context-wise. Use context. Think about it. Like, who would make the most sense to go first? Who's in the most advantageous position? Mothership kind of takes that and says something similar that I kind of want to take and sprint with in a couple directions. For starters, it does have hard rulings. I will lead with that because they are the most optional rulings that I will, if I ever have to use them, are going to be for literally a single round of. It will not be the entirety of an encounter. It'll just be something that's like, okay, this is the context of what's happening, so everybody makes it. It just turns it into a speed check. For a round, everybody takes a speed check, which is a speed check, which is a check on the list. Everybody rolls their speed checks at the same time. Anybody who succeeds goes before. Let's say if there's a creature in the room and they're about to do something, they go before whatever the creature does, and then anybody who fails the speed check acts after whatever the creature does. That's if you need a hard order. But they do recommend that it should be more theater of the mind, and really, what you should do in Mothership is everybody, you go round robin and say what you're going to do. Everybody takes a turn talking about what they are planning. Nobody rolls yet. You just say, this is what you're going to do, and then everybody resolves their rolls pretty much simultaneously. I'm going to interpret the rules as everybody rolls at the same time. And there's one thing that I want to experiment with that I'm going to kind of spoil here. So if you're out there, one of my players is out there, don't listen to this part, because I want it to be a surprise, but I do want to talk about it, because I think this is going to solve turn order for me in a way that plays nicely with dice rolls and plays nicely with context and makes it feel like, okay, that's fair. And it means that you can do this every turn. If you roll a dice and everybody rolls at the same time, the people who succeed the most, their actions resolve first. And what that means, since this is a percentile die, if everyone fails, the people who fail first are the people who succeeded the most. Which means you can contextualize that at least they got something before failing. I want to try that. I was like reading the rules over time, and I was like, the best way to contextualize how well you succeeded, did you go first? Did you get to do your thing first? That's what I want to try to use that system for. Because turn order is hard. Because you roll turn order, and I'm not saying that there's not an easy way to fix this. And I'm like, if I ever play D&D again, maybe I just say I would rather Calvin Ball, even though it's designed for initiative, and I get it. If it's designed for initiative, you should probably still use initiative. It's not, initiative is just a bad mechanic. I hate how initiative feels sometimes. It feels bad to fail initiative. It feels bad to fail initiative because you only get one roll at it. You only get one shot at initiative. If you roll bad, fuck you. Just fuck you. And there are ways to manipulate it. There's ways to turn it around. You can hold your turn or whatever to kind of change your place, which I think that's also probably the best way to do initiative. Is your initial initiative is the first round. If you want to change your placement in it, you have to physically say, I'm holding my action to go after this person, and then that changes your order for the rest of the game, or for the rest of the encounter. I think that's better than hard holding where someone's initiative is. I just don't like it. It never feels good to feel like you have to go last. It never does. Just never does. Especially if you want to do something. Like, you get to see what everyone does, and then you are constantly, in my experience in a D&D game, you are constantly having to change your plan because somebody else did something before you had the opportunity to actually execute your plan. Exactly. Mothership is very flexible. That is something I like about the system, to the point that this is a criticism for people who need this, and a plus for people like me who don't. Mothership is very much a combination of theater of the mind and Calvin Ball. There are rules. The rules are there to facilitate very specific things, and they're good rules. I think they are very good rules. But the rules are not there to describe a canon. They're not there to describe a setting. In a lot of ways, the supplementary material is just module-based for the sake of having modules. They are not there to tell a story. They are there of what Mothership setting is. They are there to give the player the tools they need to run the role-play survival, or the role-play science fiction horror that they want to run. That is what the rules are there for. They're there to allow you to play Alien. They're there to allow you to play Dead Space. They're there to allow you to play The Thing. They're there to let you play your favorite science fiction horror. And it's very flexible for that, which is why I am effectively writing my own module. That is what I am doing. Everything that is going to happen in the game is something that I have taken from the rules and from supplementary material and applied to my own module. We are running a module that does not exist. And I like that, but I know some people need a module, so fair enough. If this is really good, I'll look into making this into a module if people enjoy it, because it is something that I have worked on and thought about for a very long period of my life. It's in my kind of bucket list of projects, so. You're considering using a 2d4 for the next campaign, but you need to really think about it. For initiative? Uh-huh. But I think, I hope that initiative, doing that kind of, because that means that rounds are fairly fast, they're fairly punchy. That's something I like between Powered by the Apocalypse and this game, is rounds should feel punchy. They should feel like everything is happening all at once, because a D&D round is 6 seconds, and it takes 30 minutes to resolve 6 seconds. No. It should not work that way. It should take 5 minutes to resolve 6 seconds. So that's why I really like what this game is going for, which is everyone describes what they're doing, everybody locks in what they're going to do, we all roll, and then we all discuss the result. That is how the game works. That is how the game should work. And I think utilizing percentile success as a margin of how quickly you get something done is great. It's beautiful. I am so excited to experiment with it, and I hope it fucking works. Because God knows I otherwise hate initiative. It sucks. It's a bad... It just sucks. I don't like it, and I don't like it. If you like initiative, I don't like D&D to begin with, so... No, that's not true. I like 5th edition. 5th edition is a lot of fun. I've played quite a few 5th edition games, so... Yeah! Exactly! Isn't that so inspiring? Make an encounter that way. Go round robin, ask everybody what do they want to do for this turn, roll your rolls, then you determine who goes first based on the rolls, and you contextualize how they play out. Isn't that fucking genius? You could even make it dex-based. You could say, okay, you could, and everyone adds their dex to it, just to determine who's, well, no. See, that's the problem with initiative right there. You can't use that. That would be so fucking broken for rogues and shit. Like, no. But that's the thing, is like, there's gotta be something. There's gotta be something. Or at the very least, I kind of like that because it means you're going first, not because you're the fastest, but because you're doing the thing that you're good at. You're doing the thing that you're already good at. The people who, if you super succeed at the thing that you're really equipped for, you should feel like you have a little bit of initiative, not just because you're the fastest. Whereas if you're doing something riskier that you're not as good at, maybe you don't get to do it first, but you still get to do it. And that makes sense. You're doing something that you're not as comfortable with. You're not as quick about it. You're not proficient at it. Fuck, maybe try that. Actually, tell me if you try that, tell me how it goes. I think that is a way that I could try D&D again and be like, we don't roll initiative no more. We don't roll initiative no more. The problem is D&D is so action heavy anyways, so like I can't guarantee that would be a good system because a lot of it is about like, okay, you have to take so many actions. You can do so many things in a single turn. You really can. D&D wants to say that you take 6 seconds to do a lot. You can do a lot in D&D. Like, it's not 6 seconds. And I, to this day, have never believed that it's actually 6 seconds. It's just not... It's not feasible. It doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. That's also the other thing. This game, by design, you really don't roll for the monster. You really don't. You do for specific things, but it's all, in my opinion, the way that Powered by the Apocalypse works, which I'm channeling into Mothership to do a creature encounter design. And this is not a secret if my players are listening. Like, we're going to do this anyways. We played Powered by the Apocalypse games. We played Monster of the Week. Yes. This is how Monster of the Week works, is the creature doesn't have rolls. The creature reacts to what the players do. When you are fighting a monster, that monster immediately makes a response based on the player's decision-making and success. So in the case of this, even if you get a hit on a monster, the monster immediately reacts and at least does something in response. So that's my thing, is like, if I'm playing it right, the creature doesn't have a turn. In D&D, that's fair. The creatures have a turn. They need a turn by design. But that's the only thing, right? Like, that's why that doesn't work, is initiative has to be so strict because your encounter rules dictate that even the NPCs play by largely the same rules as the players. Whereas Powered by the Apocalypse, they don't. The creatures actually play on their own rule set. They play completely independently. Oh, I know what this is. Oh, I know exactly what this is. Hold on, I gotta look at my supplementary material. Supplementary material. I need to remember, I've done a shit ton of writing for this, and I'm gonna be doing a shit ton of writing while we're playing, and after we're playing. Like, I'm not... I'm ready. I'm always a little bit anxious that I'm like, do I have enough material prepared? Do I have enough material prepared? Yes, yes I do. I have so much fucking material prepared. It's sickening. Let's look at that, and then I need to look at a font. Here, I'll be a little bit lazy. Fuck it. Exactly. Well, that's the thing, is you can't prepare for everything, and I have to remember, this is my philosophy. I don't prepare for what the players do. What I prepare for is what the players interact with, and whatever they fucking do, they're gonna do. Best I could hope is that they just don't ignore all of it. That's always the scary part, right? Is like, the best thing you can do is make toys, make things for them to interact with. I can't make them do anything. So the best I'm hoping for is that if I'm gonna railroad a little bit, they have to get to the spot that they're going. That's it. They get on there, we're just cruising, and I litter it with a bunch of shit. I just put a bunch of things in there, and then the mystery ensues. That's it. That's gonna be the goal. You know, that's the goal, baby. I said Starbus. I think that's the name of the company. So glad I thought of this at the last second. Sorry. Yeah, Starbus. I can do that in Notepad? Not know I could do that. But I think I will do. Never thought to do this. This is just a placeholder. I definitely want it here. Fuselage. Let's find a nice text. That is... You're of the school of thought that your module, be it an actual publication of your own scribbles, is merely an outline. Exactly. Just enough detail to fill in whatever the gaps the players want to cross. Exactly. Agreed. I totally agree. Ooh, I kind of like that. I need to look at... Hold on. Perfect. See what your logo text looks like. Oh, really? Didn't think it would be that plain. This is very simple, so I don't think I want it to look like that. No. It might be... Well, I need to take a... It might be this. I like it because of the lines. I really like it because of the lines, actually. Work smarter, not harder. That's what they keep telling me. That's what I keep saying. You gotta work smarter, not harder. But what I need, here, we gotta put that up here. I need it for a blueprint. Go back to this. I don't know if I want to be that precise. Here, we'll try this first. Big. Count to 10. Count to 20. Big. That's why a lot of this, and I hope you enjoy this, is a lot of what I'm actually doing is design for the module. That's why I was like, I had a little bit of a stress moment. I won't lie when I was working on this, where I was like, I'm not going to have everything I want ready, and I don't know why I'm doing this actually a little bit, because it's not going to be the content that I want, because what I want is I want it to, no, that didn't work. Oh, I know what to do. What I want it to do... Oh, I know what I'm doing. Dumb. Guys, I figured it out. I have to use my brain. There we go. That'll help. That'll help a ton. What I'm really working on with this is I'm working on fleshing out that module. I'm getting the aesthetic design. I'm getting the science fiction design. And then anything that I can share to my players is just kind of like icing on the cake, right? Like, this is more or less about making sure that what I actually show to them is the science fiction I want to show them. And it's also just fun. It allows me to actually like talk about what my ideas are. It allows me to really start preparing to explore what kind of like ideas and things I want to share. It allows me to like kind of give you guys a little bit of some hype and anticipation on what to expect out of this game, which is something that I'm really enjoying. I'm really enjoying working on it so far because really it is for me that passion project of being able to work on this that keeps me invested in it. Like I've really enjoyed the passion of being able to be like, I'm working on a big project and I just want more of this. I want more of these. And really what I want to get out of it is the hopes that people enjoy it enough that they want to see whatever I and my friends do next. That is a huge thing. That's why I'm like, I've wanted to work on a game, for a very long time, and I think that the best reintroduction to it for me is going to be tabletop because I have an interest in wanting to make systems. I have an interest in wanting to make stories. And in a certain sense, I really do want to start getting back to the kind of supplementary material that I'm going to need if I want to turn these into their own independent big things. And tabletop is a good resource for that. Also, tabletop is just fun. It's also just really fun. It's just a very fun thing, and I like doing it. So, because ultimately speaking, if I ever want to get into game design more, you gotta start somewhere, right? Some people start with modding, some people start with tabletop. They actually do. I think there is quite a number of games that exist because they started in a tabletop setting first. Fallout is based on a tabletop game. Yeah, I like that. I like that design. In fact, it'll be consistent. How do we feel about this? Yay, nay. I like it. I like this. It's stupid. It's corporate. That's the point. It's supposed to feel stupid and corporate. If anything, it feels too cool. This feels too cool to be a real corporate sign. It needs to be boring as fuck. This is a cool thing. I sucked the soul back into this. What's wrong with me? Don't you give me that look, slime. I bet this feels like it's a paid off investment for you. I know you've been here for a while, so we'll be starting the tabletop in October as soon as possible. The first week of October, the first Friday of October, we'll be starting this game. I know you've been around for a while, so uh, I'm super excited. Me and my friends love talking about tabletop to begin with, so this has been something that I feel like we have wanted to do, something I've wanted to do for quite some time, so I think that it goes here or it goes here, weirdly enough. There. That look. Looks bad. Looks bad. Actually, that looks bad. I don't know why when this happened to me. I actually really have enjoyed doing like kind of calligraphy stuff. I don't know why. I don't know where I got this kind of graphic design from. And we just do it again. Beans. Yeah. Now, hide that. Yeah, I like that. I do like this. You've been thinking about running S3 expeditions to Barter Peaks for your tabletop? Yeah. That, I mean, the good news is if you're running fifth, I do like fifth. I do actually like fifth edition quite a bit. I think the nice thing that fifth edition does, it is really really good, is that it it does a good job of being flexible. It is the most flexible that I've seen D&D be, and I like that about it. I do like that about it. So, oh yeah, that seems appropriate. I like that. I was like kind of agonizing a little bit over like that element, and I like this better. I do like this better. This feels much better to me. Is the idea that you don't use the tiny shuttle to do space travel, use the tiny shuttle to get you from point A to point B. So like this is how you literally ride one of these to do the big space travel. And like I said, I think the idea that I have regarding these star buses is that they don't land. They don't land. They just stay in space, and they just transport people from across space like a big transit system, and that's it. You have to wait for one to come by before you can leave any location. So you are stranded. You cannot leave because if you are either on a star bus or you're off a star bus. You cannot easily transport yourself through space. I like that. Like, there's short range space travel, and these are the long range space travel. Like, space travel hasn't been made. It hasn't been made compatible. Compatible. Small. It hasn't been made small yet. It's only been made large scale. You can only do large scale mass transportation of people in long distances in space. Short distance travel is possible, but inside of a solar body. Like you can travel anywhere with a shuttle near a planet. You can travel to moons, you can travel to structures, you can travel to the planet, But to go from planet to solar, from solar object to solar object, you have to use larger transport, and that's what these guys are. So glad I had that epiphany with the Nostromo to be like, the Nostromo is a spaceship in quite the literal terms that all it does is space. That's all it fucking does. 3.5 is more flexible with how you can build your characters compared to 5e, especially when prestige classes are forced in, but 5e is simpler to use. Yes, I think that 3.5 gives you more tools but adds a lot of complexity. And 5th edition gives you a more of a putty to play with. And we more like the putty. We more like the putty. My friends more like the putty. I certainly like the putty. One of the things that I do think 5th edition does with things like proficiency is they really do a good job of making sure that your character is not overcomplicated, but still feels like you're building a character with a lot of options, right? You're giving them a wide tool set, but actually making sure that your character's focuses are on that tool set rather than making you have to illustrate every little detail that character can and can't do. And I like that. I like the broad stroke function because, again, me and my friends are much more roleplay heavy. I do not trust the dice. I do not trust the dice. I know I already went on my rant, but I just don't. I don't trust the dice. I never trust the dice. Never trust the dice. The dice have betrayed me too many times. I literally came off of the back of the worst rolling game I've ever had, where in... Oh God, I hate it when this happens. Yes. Yes, they do. I'm very familiar with that, especially in the last game that I played. Because there was a day. Now, I will admit, it was a bit thematic. I actually ended up, and this is where good roleplay comes in, and this is why I like my friends, this is why I want to do more live play, is I was having a bad day. So I was like, I don't want to put too much effort into this. I'll let the dice do the talking. Guess what the dice did? Out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rolls in an encounter, I think I succeeded 3. I succeeded 3 rolls in 10. And these were things I was supposed to be good at. I was rolling 6+ dice, because this is a World of Darkness game. If you don't know World of Darkness, that is Vampire the Masquerade, Age of the Ascension, etc., etc. We're doing mage books, but Jackson is also implementing vampires, werewolves, all of that. We're going into the actual setting, and it works by a die pool system. And I actually like die pool systems. I think they're great. I think success is based on your ability to do something, giving you more dice to do stuff. Cool mechanic. Fucking love it. That's a good dice pool. That's a good dice system. I love it. Except somehow I managed to roll no successes on rolls that I was rolling 6 to 7 dice on. It's also a D10 system. I rolled no successes. Fucking incredible. My friends were aghast on how I was able to do that. And then I turned it around because I was the next session I decided to like own up and fess up, and I was like, I should have been a better player, and I should have been doing I should have been willing to do role play. I should have been willing to actually like think about what I was doing more and try to make a much more role play friendly experience for myself and my friends rather than just letting the dice do the talking. And I did. And I made it thematic, and it was good, and like I actually got a good heartfelt moment at the end where I was like, everything I did was a mistake, genuinely. And I learned that I should have been able to face what was going on rather than trying to run away with it. Run away from it. Ironically, in an attempt to try to run away from my problems, the dice said no, and it became a thematic thing. And that's something that I think me and my friends do actually really well, is we care a lot about the storytelling element, of tabletop. It's the thing that we love the most. It's the reason why we love things like Action Dice. Action Dice literally has no rolling. It is just theater of the mind. You tell a story with your friends. And that is what me and my friends do best. That is what we do. That is what I enjoy about tabletop is it is a performance. It is an opportunity to perform, not just an opportunity to play a game. We get to play a character, you get to act, you get to do all of these things. It is an opportunity for those things. And in an effort to try to avoid literal responsibility in the setting and avoid responsibility in the game, I ended up having to turn that around and turn it into a good roleplay moment. And that's what I want to. I see those moments that me and my friends have. We've done live play and we've done it live, and I want to share that with people because it's so good. We are really. I love playing with my friends because my friends are fantastic storytellers. Me and my friends, we really love doing storytelling, and I love doing storytelling with them, and I want to share the stories we make because we make some great stories. They're silly sometimes, they're exciting, they're dramatic, and I just want to be able to provide that. I just want to be able to provide that space for my friends and the people that I already do this for to really start getting into a part of my life where we're not just playing dumb video games on the internet. We're doing stuff. We're doing stuff here. Last night we did something. Fuck. Jackson really pushed it, and you know what? Fair enough. I'm glad he did. Because we ended up making something that apparently doesn't exist. Fair enough. Whether I've actually now shared it correctly is its own kind of existential problem. But I did do it. We did do it. Some tables like roleplay, some tables like roleplay. Exactly. That was actually something which was a bummer, and I feel bad about this to this day, is like, I did have a table that wanted to just play more die heavy, and that kind of bummed me out, because I want to be able to provide experience. And when I say experience, I mean experience from being able to give people things to interact with. And unfortunately, I would be like, okay, here's a thing, and then they would just ignore it because they just wanted to roll the dice and see the results, which is fair. That is, people can do that. That is a play style. It's just not mine. I do get a better experience out of tabletop when I feel like I am not just making the decisions, but that the decisions are reflective of my direct performance. That's hard. Not everyone can do that. I get it. It's an intimidating thing to do. So I still kind of feel bad. I really wanted to play that game. It was a Traveler game I was playing with my friends. And this was with a friend group that had never done tabletop before, and I had only done tabletop with my current friend group. And I was like, dude, tabletop fucking rocks. I want to do this with with you guys. And I remembered it still being fun. We had we had a good first arc. I remembered enjoying that arc. I hope my friends did too, and they did seem to. The thing that sucks is they did seem to enjoy the arc, but then there was just that miscommunication where I was like, I want to do this more, and I don't remember how it got brought up, but it got made established that they were more interested in just the dice rolling rather than having to act things out. They found it stressful, and I really feel bad because at the time, I guess I just didn't have the maturity to understand that that was just a different group. That was just a different group. They just played differently. There's nothing wrong with that. There wasn't. And at the time I felt bummed. I was like, I do this to write stories. I do this to write characters. I do this for character interaction. And unfortunately the party I was playing with just wasn't interested in doing that. They just didn't want to do that. Happens. It happens. And again, I want to maintain there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. The real thing about any tabletop, if you are playing tabletop, the only thing that matters is if everybody's having a good time and if everybody's enjoying the tabletop game. That's what matters. Tabletop, I feel like Sean kind of pointed this out. At its core, tabletop is a social experience. It is social on some level. There is no exception to that. It is a social activity. So like how people go about social activities differently, but it is still a social activity. And as long as everybody is gelling and having a good time as a social activity, that's all that matters. Ultimately, really this game, and I do want to be vocally transparent. The effort that I put into this game is to kind of break a little bit of a curse that I've suffered doing tabletop. Is I feel like I've had the curse of tabletop that I've wanted so badly to provide a game. I've wanted so badly to provide a game for my friends because I have ideas too and I want to share my stories and share the kind of like stuff that I'm interested in, and I'll see you guys here shortly. We're about to start an ad, so I'll kind of pause for a second as well, kind of give myself a little bit of a break. Look at what I'm doing. We'll probably start a new topic. Actually, I think I'm pretty happy with the Star Bus. I'm pretty happy with the Star Bus. Yeah, that's what matters first. There's actually something if you're here, Slime. I don't know if you're using an ad blocker, to which naughty naughty if you are, I have to wiggle my finger at you if you're still listening. Oh, you didn't get the ads, you cheeky little scamp. You remember, this is always a bit. But one of the things that Sean actually came up with, and I have to figure out my kind of like medium of it, because there is one kind of thing that I don't like about it that I'm like, I kind of want to establish it a little bit more, but I don't think anybody's ever used it, so it's never come to this. So that's also the other thing, is we've never been put in a situation in which this could be a problem. Honestly, I should wait. I should wait to talk about this just in case people have ads. So we'll talk about something else. We will talk about more Mothership. The thing I think that's cool about Mothership, the thing I really think is cool about Mothership, is how it handles injuries. Injuries are a super important part of the game because at its core, it is a survival game. It is a survival horror experience. It gives you the tools that you need to make it a survival experience, and it gives them to you in such a way that I am going to be it has a ruling for it if you want to consider survival for that. It does have rulings for like food and water. I personally don't care. For me, survival horror works best when you are focused on tension of the situation and the danger of the situation, and not whether or not you need to eat and then take a piss. Food and water as a resource is not bad, but it should be held as a passive resource at best. You should never actively have food or water be something that you need to be thinking about. It shouldn't. No, it's not. It's tedious for me. It's always been tedious when it's been implemented as a survival mechanic in pretty much any piece of video game media, because that's where it's going to be the most applicable. It's not to say that it's impossible to do, but it definitely is a challenge that most people relegate to a meter that you have to babysit. There should be no for me, good survival is not about babysitting a meter. Good survival is about managing your resources to make sure you stay alive, and those resources should be limited. They should be limited. You can't farm them, you shouldn't farm them, and you should be considering them as a limitation for what you're capable of. That is what good survival horror is. And you can make food and water a restriction, but you have to keep that in mind. It needs to be a restriction. You can't just make it something that people need to deal with, otherwise it just becomes tedious. And then if it becomes tedious, there's no point in the mechanic, in my opinion. So, exactly. It's good as a time limit. That's a good thing, but it needs to stay passive. It needs to stay a passive element. It should not be something you need to think about constantly. It shouldn't. You shouldn't babysit a meter. It should be something that becomes a problem because you neglected it for too long, not because you have to eat a candy bar every 5 minutes. But to kind of go back to this is why I can't. This is a dangerous thing that I've done. I should have was like, I'll wait until after. I've now forgotten what I was going to talk about. But we will talk more about Mothership until I remember, or I wrap back around to it if I can remember. Um, Mothership does a really good job with its damage system in making a damage system that feels very, very theatrical whilst maintaining mechanical significance. So the wound system, you have the player's handbook open. The wound system is incredibly elegant. You have a very finite amount of health that is based on a system in which you are having to manage your health as a resource that is very survival horror, Resident Evil, kind of whiffy in a way that makes you have to deal with injuries and make injuries matter without making injuries gamey, in my opinion. They make them contextual. They make very good contextual injuries that you can't just game, that you have to be dealing with, and that you are going to be dealing with because you should avoid getting hurt as much as possible. But much like a good survival horror game, can risk getting hurt. You will have to deal with something if you get hurt. More likely is what is going to happen. And that's a lot of what Mothership really wants to try to capture is the feeling of resource management of your character as a resource. That's sanity is the panic checks also are very, very good. Another thing that the game does really well is there is one mechanical failure item in the game dictated as stress. You technically have two forms of health. You have your physical health and your mental health. Your physical health is physical. You take damage, and when you hit a threshold, you immediately take a wound. And what's important to remember is your HP is not you hit 0 HP, you die, or you pass out. Your HP hits 0, you take a wound. Some of those wounds are incapacitating, but you take a wound. And you have a maximum number of wounds that you can take. So you actually have more health than you think you do. But it also means that you can sustain injuries that you have to deal with. You have to actually engage with those injuries. You can't just ignore them. You have to figure out what to do about them. And they can really, really affect you in a way that I actually think is really good. It's a really good way to make the players have to deal with a much more fluid health system whilst giving it a health mechanic, while giving you a mechanical health incentive. On top of that, which I really like, the panic system is there to be able to make players be a little bit unreliable. You have a bit of an unreliable... Being an unreliable narrator is a bit baked into the setting and a bit baked into the systems of the game. Every time you fail a check, you take 1 stress. Stress is a mechanic of the game that you start, I believe, at 2, and it can go up and down pretty easily. It's supposed to. But stress as a mechanic is there to kind of contextualize the mental health of your character without having to go super in depth with it. It's just how stressed you are because it's a stressful situation. So you're having to manage your stress. And I will have ways to do that. I'll have many ways to both relieve stress as much as there are ways to gain it, because that is the best way to have to handle that kind of system, is to try to avoid taking on stress, but it's not... You will eventually take stress. It is going to happen because you will fail a check. And even if you partially succeed, you still take the stress of it. That's like a pretty reasonable thing to be like, you are able to do this, but take a point of stress and you are starting to feel the pressure. Like, that's storytelling. That's a good way to do horror storytelling for a space survival game that feels like you are in the movie Alien. That movie works because it is a stressful situation. A part of the horror of that is how stressful it is. Everybody is under pressure. There's a ton of pressure in that movie, and this game tries to capture that feeling. Every time you take a point of stress, at certain points, contextually, that makes sense, your your warden, the GM, can have specific players or all players take something called a panic check. And you roll a d20. And if you roll over, no, if you roll under your current stress, so if you have 6 stress and you roll a 5, you take a panic condition, which they have a table for, and you take that 5 at a panic. And I love that. It's a more flexible wound. It's a different kind of wound, but it's a wound that it gives you 2 different wound settings to have to contend with. You have to manage them, you have to balance them on a character level. And it's not, they have mechanical significance, but they are also contextualizing in the kind of condition that your character actually is. And here's the most important thing, that I am coming to grips with this system. If it sounds very harsh, that's because it should be. It is a horror game that wants you as a player to play the role of a character who is, for all intents and purposes, a red shirt. You get to design your red shirt to the point that death is contextualized mechanically in such a way, well, mechanically and contextually in such a way that players are encouraged to put their characters in dire situations, and if they die, you get to act out your death scene. It is your moment. It says in the rules by design, if you die, that is your player's scene. You don't get to say what your player does when they die. Your player gets to say what they do when they die. And that is so fucking cool. I love that. I fucking love it. And I think the best way to contextualize that is, now that I'm thinking about it, there is one discrepancy that I was kind of like wrestling with. So that death mechanic is great, except to add a little bit of the tension, if a player does hit 0 wounds, which is what happens when you get incapacitated, you start rolling death saves, kind of D&D style, but with a little bit more flair. What I do is, if a player hits 0 wounds and gets incapacitated, I throw a die into a cup and I roll the cup upside down. And when another player inspects that player, they open the cup and they find out what the actual condition of that player is and if they actually died or if they didn't. So I think what I would do is if you hit 0 wounds, you act out what your 0 wounds look like, and then I roll the die. And let's just say, if you decide to go big, you can make decisions where you don't roll that die. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna put it to the player. If you want me to roll a die, act out how it looks like right before you die. If you don't want me to roll a die, what do you do that makes me not roll a die? And there's only one answer for that. There's only one answer for what a character can do to not have to roll a death save. And it's called pulling the pin on a grenade in your hand while a monster tears you to the ground. Like, that's how I want to do that. Like, put it in the player's camp. You want to decide whether or not your character survives or not. But if you gonna pull that grenade pin, you gotta pull that grenade pin yourself. And I want the player to own that. They should be encouraged to want to do that. If that's the situation that they feel like they're in, fucking let them and make it a fucking moment. And that's why I'm excited for this game. I have not played a game that wants you to wrestle with player death like this and make it a part of the experience, make it a part of the entertainment, make it a part of the drama. You are encouraged by design in Mothership to try to get your character killed because, in a certain sense, you should want to act out your death scene. In a certain sense, you kind of want your character to die. And I'll be honest, I have not had a character die. I've come close. I've come very close. I've practically gotten a character paralyzed, but I've never actually gotten a character killed. And that is actually genuinely something I'm really excited to be able to do with Mothership and be able to have a story about that, because Yeah, yeah. I think there is a feeling of a bit of main character syndrome when it comes to tabletop in general. You're the main character, you're the hero of the story, you're the big shots, you're the guys who go in, you get shit done, right? Like when in horror, a lot of the best horror, and it's really pulling off things like Alien and Aliens and all of that stuff, right? Like let's take Aliens for example. Aliens does a very, very good job, even to the point that I think the reason why Predator exists is because some execs saw Alien and thought it was really cool, but then decided that they really were disappointed that the Colonial Marines weren't cooler. And they kind of missed the whole point that they really hype up the Colonial Marines and then do have the red shirt moment of getting them slaughtered because it turns out they're not as competent as they thought they were. They just aren't. It's not even a matter of them being trained enough um, or them being well equipped enough. They just literally, by design of the setting, which I have to give credit to Mr. Cameron, the Colonial Marines are supposed to appear like badasses, but actually they're just a bunch of guys that a corporation decided to train on how to deal with a situation like that, and then gave a bunch of guns and said, "Go have fun." That's a good, responsible thing to do. And the game, the mothership, really wants to facilitate that. If you have a Marine, your Marine should feel like, yeah, they want to fight, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to even be good at it. That just means that you want to facilitate that feeling that they want to be putting themselves in danger, they want to be putting themselves in situations where they get to shoot stuff, and that they want to do that. But by design, the game really wants you to try to avoid conflict, actually, as much as possible. It'll be impossible to it'll be avoiding conflict is a resource in Mothership. That's really what they want you to do. You won't be able to do it forever, but you can at least try. Okay, I need to make some notes here. I say as I'm like, actually, I want to draw like one or two more things. Draw like a little canopy. I don't know. I like the idea that this big space whale ship has like just like 8 billion little like passenger windows and 8 billion little like system windows coming off of it. I've always been a big fan of the design of the Pillar of Autumn, so this is very, very much like the Pillar of Autumn if the Pillar of Autumn didn't have any guns. This is the Pillar of Autumn if the Pillar of Autumn didn't have any guns. It's like 80%, I'm going to say like it's mostly engine in the back to facilitate space travel in a timely fashion, and then you have the hangar where you have several shuttles for people who have shuttles, and then it has like incubation regions where people sleep, and then like just living decks, and that's it. That's all it is. It's like a 4 deck thing. You got the bottom deck, which is where shuttles are. You have mid deck, which is probably like life, and then you have top deck. Well, you have top deck where people live and work. You have middle deck, which is where people sleep. Actually, no, I like that. Top deck is going to be functional. Mid deck is going to be living space, and bottom deck is going to be where all the ships and stuff lie. So there's only 3 decks on this thing. Like I said, keep it simple. I like this design. It looks good. It's a big, long rocket that goes through space and it doesn't land. I'm glad I looked up the sperm whale, by the way. That was a good shape. That was a good shape to start with. I like what this looks like. In fact, I'm going to add one more detail and then we'll switch. And hey, I gotta say, I'm glad that I had that revelation, by the way, everybody, of being like, what am I doing with this? You know what? What I'm doing with it is I'm using this as a way to generate inspiration. That's it. This is just first and foremost, this is a way for me to generate inspiration. More than anything else, I just want to be able to inspire both myself and everybody else to get an idea of what the hell this kind of setting is going for. Where my inspirations are coming from, where I'm pulling my ideas from, what I'm interested in. And the way that I imagine this is you have top deck. This is almost also split in half. So, like, up to about here, up to about here, this is all engine. Like, this is literally all engine, and if there's any space, it's very narrow. It's just to get back there to do maintenance. But this is all engine, primarily. This right here is all engine. Oh man, my science illustration is showing. And then this is all the crew space. The top deck is like actually like piloting crew. The mid deck is like anybody who isn't piloting. This is all space. Roomy. You have a pilot and crew deck. This. I just like doing this too. This is just stuff that I like to do. This kind of stuff is stuff that I get into, if you can't tell. If you can't tell, this is just something I like to do. So this is shuttle hangar. And you've got pilot and crew deck. And passenger. And the idea is like, so passenger deck, you know, that's where all your passengers are. They can go, they have amenities, they have stuff that they have their stuff in there, they have sleeping quarters, they have cryo quarters. Like, they probably have cryo quarters that double as their sleeping quarters for when they're awake. I kind of like that. Again, the idea is a lot of this is much more utilitarian. So, like, you have like this feeling that everything serves more than one purpose. You have this idea that if they could make something do two jobs, they fucking will. And then it'll also do at least two more that it probably shouldn't. That's a big part of the setting that I want to establish, is this idea that, like, you're working into space, corporations are moving into space, and they're trying to squeeze every inch of space out of something to make it as efficient and utilitarian as possible. That's a big part of the setting. So, like, a lot of this is, like, most of this is engine for space travel, and then you have the top deck, which is just for pilot and crew, which might have its own space. And again, the living quarters also doubles as the cryo quarters for them. Then you have the passenger deck, same thing. Living quarters combo is so things like your sleeping pod is where you sleep, and then it's also where you do your cryo sleep. And you get in there, and most space travel is cryo sleep based. I've always liked that. And it's a part of the setting. Again, very alien. Like, there's a lot of cryo travel. So you have that, but then also on the passenger deck, you have maybe like kiosks for food. I actually don't know if they'd allow you to cook. I don't think they'd allow you to cook. I think this is corporate future hell. You have to buy everything. So like you can go get food, you can wander around, whatever. They have amenities, stuff like that. Nothing is free. Nothing is free in space. That should be the if the tagline of Alien was "No one can hear you in space, no one can hear you scream." The tagline of this is "In space, nothing is free." That's the tagline of this game is "In space, nothing is free." I'm just gonna make a note of that. But yeah, no, I like this kind of like being able to dissect and like really like think about like where things are. That's just something I really like to do. That's just what I like to do. It's my vibe. It's my vibe. What can I say? I'm feeling much better about today compared to last week. I only apologize for last week because I was going through it, and I know it happens. I know it happens, but fuck, I was not in a state to do things last week. I just wasn't. That's the truth. I was not in a headspace to work, which happens. And we live in a nightmare where that doesn't matter sometimes. The spice must flow. But this I like. This came out really good. I'm very happy with this design. I think this is a good stopping point for this design. I don't think I need to do more for it. I like it. I like that. Which might actually inform. Oh man, that might be scarier. We might need to go back. I made this first, right? I made this first. No, I think I want to leave that because I really want it to feel like you are small and the smaller shuttle would be better. Though the big, I could see it also working for the star bus as well to like really give an idea that the star bus is also small. Maybe just like distantly. Maybe just like distantly. Also have the star bus back there. Has a sense of scale. I don't know. What do you guys think? Nah, I don't like it. I do think I just want one ship. I really want it again. I want it to give that essence, that feeling of isolation. You're in space. You're in fucking space. Ain't nothing. You in space? Like sure, you're in the middle of the ocean, but at least you can swim up, right? Like there's hope in the ocean. You can swim up. You can swim up, or you could at least try. You might drown, but at least you can try. Space, where do you go? You can't swim to a planet. You can't you can't do anything. You are in space. There is nothing. There is nothing in space. I love this drawing, by the way. This came out perfect. I even want to make it a point that like those stars that you see, the stars in the background and everything, it really gives that impression that even space itself is like kind of derelict, right? Like you don't get a sense that just because you're in space that like even you have the company of this much more than the stars. Like it is empty. Void, the cry of the void. This is one of my favorite things I've done for this project. I'm not gonna lie, and it came out so quick. It just goes that way. I like that. I like the way that came out. Let me think. Do next. If I want to just do more promo art, I think I know what I'm gonna do next. So again, I think ultimately speaking, the goal of the project at this point is that I want to make promo art for it, like first and foremost. If I am able to do backgrounds, cool, great, wonderful. But I just gotta make things. I just gotta make things to keep my inspiration alive. A little bit thicker. We'll do 10. Oops. And I actually need to open some supplementary material. I've made a. I need to not sell my shelves short either. I've made a ton. I've made like an actual ton of concept art. Like I really have been going at it. It's been good. I've been doing good work. The work has been doing. The work has been doing. Here's what we're gonna do. Just gonna focus on this second. Kind of go a little bit sketchy with it, just to keep that kind of design with it. I just want to. I This is just more or less to continue to cement the kind of tone I'm going for. Which honestly is like a big part of why I'm doing a lot of the artwork for this. Is just to continue to cement what kind of tone I'm looking at. Tone is going to be hugely important for this game for me. You know me, I can't help myself. I like me a nice. I do. I really do like. Believe it or not, I really do like Dead Space. It's one of my favorites. I just feel like I also got a little bit critical of it because, like, I think at one point it kind of got synonymous with like that's not. It's just the that's not a horror game. Horror games aren't. All it does is scream in your face. I mean, it does. Is one of the things that I do dislike about Dead Space is that one of its main ways to do horror is to scream in your face. But I don't think it's the only horror it does, and I do like Dead Space quite a bit. Um, but by God, are those designs not iconic? They really are. They're really good, honestly. Oh, you're good. Let's see some progress. This is what I started with, by the way. Fucking love this. Mad because I couldn't do this last week, but I'm happy because this fucking came out great. And that's... Nope, not that. That's ship progress. I'm happy with this. This is pretty much it. I think this is good. I don't think there's much more I need to do with that. And now we're just... Now, essentially, I've, like, kind of realized I was... Today, I was, like, putting way too much pressure on myself to, be like, okay, now I'm in fucking dire mode. I need to buckle down and start getting some shit done. And then that actually ended up being counterintuitive. So now I'm back on, like, just do what works. And what has been working is promotional work. This has largely been for promo. I've been trying to be more promotional about it, and it should be. I want to try to hype people for it. So if you like things like Silent Hill, if you like Alien, if you like Dead Space, be stoked. They're all the kinds of things that are inspiring. If you like Signalis, Signalis ended up getting at. I'm kind of glad I ended up playing Signalis because Signalis also woke me up to the idea that a lot of the horror that works in that game is a combination of things, one of which being, wow, that setting sure is fucked. Wow, the authoritarian nature of the setting of that setting. Boy, that's not good for anyone, it seems. Which, if you haven't played, uh, well, any of those games, should. They're good. But if you haven't played Signalis, highly recommend it. Highly recommend Signalis. Need to make this a little bit smaller. Big. Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoy this, because, like, again, a lot of one of the main impetuses of this project was honestly like being like, I really, really, really do like Dead Space. I love Dead Space. It's so good. It's so inspirational. I do actually really like Isaac as a character, not because he has my name, but because I actually like Isaac Clarke as a character. Believe it or not, it it's not because of that. Um, but like I really like that game and I really like that setting, but I think it does have a problem where it wants to be a horror game and it does have parts of it that can be a little bit more contemplative, but it's more of just an action horror game, which is fine. I love that it's an action horror game. Um, both Dead Space 1 and Dead Space 2. Dead Space 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. But the impetus was, I love that, but I kind of want that. I want a headier experience. I want to see if I can take a swing at taking some of the things that Dead Space does, some of the things that Alien does, and try to mash a little bit more Silent Hill, mash a little bit more of that psychological horror, that contemplative horror, especially with the case of Dead Space, because one of the things that Dead Space does is that it, in my opinion, I think that Dead Space wants to be, I think Dead Space wants to be much more contemplative, and it mostly succeeds at it. And I actually think it's aged better, especially with things like the remake. I think the remake does a good job of kind of like updating some of it. But I do think one of its biggest one of its biggest problems is that it sometimes doesn't know how to shut up. It does not know, Dead Space doesn't know how to shut its mouth when it comes to horror. That's the important thing. I don't think there's too much talking in the game, quite the opposite. I think that the game screams in your face too much. And I told, especially Dead Space 2 ends up like really doing that. I think it is actually less in Dead Space 1, but a lot of Dead Space 1 really does just yell at you a lot. A lot. And that is something that I actually want to cut down on. I want the game to feel much more closer to Alien. I want it to feel much more closer to even The Thing. The Thing doesn't really scream in your face, I feel like, that much. It kind of does, but it also kind of earns it. Because when it has a scene, it makes that scene go. And the problem is when you do that for an entire game, it kind of kills the tension, unfortunately. Whereas I want to make it a point, like, be able to have different kinds of dread. Even Aliens understands that the tension of a situation, even if it's long running, comes less from the constant like screaming of the aliens in your face and more of like the pressure that they constantly provide. Aliens is a scary movie because that movie is tense, and once the aliens start being introduced, they're there and they don't go away until they need to go away. Like, they put them away when they need to be put away, but when they're there, they're very hard to get away from. But the aliens themselves don't, like, scream and make loud noises and jump scare you. They just are constantly a pressure when they're actually a pressure. And that's something I want to capture, And I think that Dead Space does do that. I think Dead Space does that pretty good. That's why I would say Dead Space is still good in comparison to something like Aliens. It is very much a survival horror action game in which the tension is about how pressuring the necromorphs are. And they are. They're fucking terrifying for how much pressure they provide. When I was a kid, they were incredibly intimidating and incredibly scary for that. They were scary for that. But I will admit, I think that having grown up with them, they lose a little bit of their scare factor for just how much they really want to put it in the player's face. And the best horror for me that I started growing up and realizing that I really liked out of horror was when horror does not scream in your face. I like when horror, the real attempt here with this is I want to make a game that has very little to no. There is no intent. If there is one that happens, I'm going to follow what I like to call the Alien rules of jump scare. This game is designed first to not have very many jump scares, if any at all. I should not rely on a jump scare. And if I do, it is going to be what I like to call the Alien jump scare. Now, upon a more future, on additional watches, I think I kind of oversell this a little bit, but I do think it is an important element to Alien regarding how it earns some of its scares, and the utilization of jump scares is very few of the jump scares are actually related to the alien. Like, there still are a couple where the alien pops out or like appears, but they're few. There are not very many of them. That's a big thing that's important, is the jump scares in Alien are not just the alien, and are oftentimes actually utilized very well to cut tension. For example, some of the most common jump scares in Alien have everything to do with assuming that there's danger when there wasn't any to begin with. That is one of the most common uses of the jump scares in Alien. They don't actually utilize them all that often, I feel like, to hype up the alien themselves. They utilize them to add to tension and then release that tension to show, oh, actually there was no danger. And then actually when there is danger, there oftentimes isn't a jump scare. Like, there really isn't. And there's a sense of like constant dread, and that dread is built. And like, for example, the one that I can think of is there's not And when it's like the closest thing to a jump scare in those moments, it's because it's quick, not because suddenly the alien came out of nowhere. Like actually, the alien itself, the xenomorph, um, really takes its time when it appears. Like it's not quick. It's not quick until it has to be. It strikes quickly, but it puts itself in a position to do that. It doesn't just pop out of a vent and go oogie boogie. Like it does that kind of once, kind of, and even then they build up the tension to it, and it's earned. It's not just they didn't know the alien was going to be there. They knew the alien was there the whole time. They knew the xenomorph was there the whole time. And otherwise, a lot of the jump scares are things like Jonesy, the cat. The cat just appearing in places and being like, fuck, it was just the cat. Like, that's a lot of the jump scares. There isn't really a jump scare when the face hugger happens because they build it up. They constantly put tension on that moment and then they resolve it in a quick motion. Sure, that you can account to being a jump scare, but the actual building to it was built to it. He's literally stuck its face in the egg. Like, yeah. And then something happened, and something quick happened. But they built up to it, and it's a very long scene, and that's something I really want to capture. Is like, if there's a jump scare, I actually want to go the extra mile and say, like, um, there can be, like, quick motions, but, like, there is not going to be a part of the game that I will intentionally do where, like, a loud noise will happen and the creature just pops out. Like that I don't want to do. Another thing I don't want to do that is a bit of a criticism to Dead Space design wise that I think totally robs one of the things that I really like about Dead Space that I've always wanted to see explored just in a game that I don't I've never seen it done. I've never seen it done. That I've done. I've done it and it's good and it's scary and I the idea that um when you have a creature like this, when your creature design is such that I'm really pulling on more of the inspiration of the Alien for this, that it truly utilizes elements of level design that might lightly be available to the player, but are largely not, and that really they move through the walls, they move through the ceilings, they move through the places that the players can't easily get to, even if they can access them. It's not the safest place for them to be. It's kind of safer for the creature. I really want to give this impression that like when they can come out of anywhere, when they can come out of a vent, you need to be aware of your positioning and that they know that. And one of the things that Dead Space is kind of bad about, at least on subsequent playthroughs, is that you don't ever feel like the necromorphs actually try to ambush the player. Oftentimes the necromorphs just come out of a vent on the other side of the room. And that they do that. They just do that. They don't feel like they come out in inconvenient places as an enemy that is largely more mobbish rather than the kind of alien isolation alien that's like a super duper threat. I think but even they understand in Alien Isolation that when the alien can come out of any vent, it chooses vents to come out of that can be inconvenient. Like I think that's something that I really like actually about Alien Isolation personally is that the alien in Alien Isolation really does feel like if it comes out of a vent, if it can come out of anywhere, truly anywhere, it feels that way. It feels like it can come out of anywhere. Just trying to reposition this a little bit more because I want to a little bit more real estate, what it's actually. Anger eyes. And that's something that I really want to capture with this setting is that, you know, the level design and the creature design is specifically set up in a certain kind of parameter in that the players are having to fight against their environment as much as they are having to fight against the threat, because the threat can utilize the environment a little bit more effectively than they can. Like, there's a reason why the idea that something can move through the vents of a space station is scary, because you're not supposed to go in there. And it can move in there freely? That's just something it can do? Like, that's intimidating to me. Which I feel like is oftentimes a missed opportunity with the necromorphs, because one of the things that the necromorph does, which again, it's not easy to code this. I'm not saying I'm like the game designers fucking missed the point. Why didn't they just do this? Maybe it was just genuinely that hard to code from an AI standpoint. I just think that the necromorph doesn't do enough to try to preserve its own safety. And that oftentimes necromorphs just kind of throw themselves at the player until they die or the player dies. That is what most necromorph design is. When in reality, I think the necromorphs would be way scarier if they had a presence of mind to their environment. If they seemingly utilized the environment much more thoughtfully to their advantage. That is something that is unique to this creature design that is not really explored all that well, and has really only been kind of explored even in things like Alien Isolation. I think Alien Isolation does a decent job at it, but it still feels like oftentimes the alien itself is just kind of roaming around until it finds you, right? Whereas I think as far as encounter design goes, I want to be able to make an element that like and I've done this and it works and I know it works. And you want to know how I know it works? Halo 3. I made, and I'll never shut up about it, one of the first games I ever made, one of the best games I ever made, was a multiplayer game, Halo 3, called Aliens. And I made this map specifically for this, that it was a zombies game mode. And the idea behind it was that the traversal design was two-sided. The players, the humans, were much more constricted in where they can go and what they could do. They were constricted in the map, whilst the aliens actually had free control of the map, motion-wise, and could pop in and out of the map to try to ambush the players. And the idea is there was a sense of cat and mouse in which the players, the human players, had to try to figure out how to survive the situation whilst constantly being at least aware that their opponents were around, but they couldn't actually engage with them unless their opponents engaged with them on an advantage that they had, because otherwise they didn't have one. They don't have guns. And that is something that I was always super proud of. And then I made, like, it was very much based on, there was a Halo game mode, I don't remember what it was called, in which you essentially were going through a set of tunnels and you had to break down doors. Tucker's Kobolds? I have no idea what that is. That is. Tucker's Kobolds. The song. Oh, the song? What, this? I don't know what Tucker's Kobolds is. Can you survive Tucker's Kobolds 3 RPG questions? Brutal because of their effective uses of traps paired with legitimate military tactics. Exactly. And the idea is that the creature themselves isn't just dangerous because they throw themselves at, whatever they're fighting. No. If anything, they will pop in, try to do as much harm as they can, and get out. That's the idea that I'm going for. Is they don't they have enough self-preservation that they try to think of their environment to utilize it to their advantage, but they can't manipulate their environment. They just can. They are just able to utilize the environment in a way that the players can't, for movement, for locomotion, for engagement. And that is something that I want to channel into it, because that game that I was talking about, that's exactly how it worked. In the ceilings back in the day in Halo 3, I utilized the believe it or not, I utilized uh the pallets. What I used is I utilized pallets. So that was another thing. I was doing audio based gameplay before Hunt ever existed. Where uh by design, by happenstance design, mind you, but by design because I chose it that way. In order for the aliens to enter the map, they could only enter through the roof of specific parts of the map. And because I had a design that they had low gravity and the humans couldn't get out of the map. They were constrained to the inside of these corridors, while the aliens had free motion. Like, they could just jump around and move wherever they want to give the impression and the idea and the feeling that they could go wherever they wanted to, because they actually could. I had things like the motion tracker actually work like the motion tracker. So you saw the aliens scurrying around in the walls. It was like a fun experience for that. Like, like you knew where the aliens were, but that didn't mean that you could do anything about it. Like I want to give that feeling of that in that game. And then the reason why the pallets ended up being a stroke of genius is because the pallets block where the aliens can come in. Anytime an alien enters, you hear a pallet break. Or most of the time. You at least hear a pallet break once, and the pallets did respawn. I did end up making that an element because, yeah, like that's kind of a fun little element to be like, oh no, something just came in. And I did that in Halo 3 in a multiplayer game in Forge. And no game has done that. Not even the Dead Space game where you played as the zombies did that. Nothing, not even the Alien Colonial Marines game I tried playing it and it didn't accomplish that. There is not enough of a feeling of the difference of having escape, because the big thing is you should provide escape routes for your monster design that the humans don't have, to be able to allow them to get away, so that way they can actually get away, and it's about a war of attrition. That was always the idea, is that it was a war of attrition between the aliens and the Marines that I contextualized in that setting. That was the idea, is that it really felt like they were trying to get out of that situation as quickly as possible. And I've wanted to share and capture that in something. And I really wanted to run a tabletop game of essentially that kind of gameplay loop, of putting in different situations where the freedom of motion of the creatures is greater than the freedom of motion of the players, and that they have to account for that. It's something that they have to account for. That's my TED talk on once again one of my childhood prides and joys, when I peaked, when I fucking peaked when I was 10 years old. I mean, I don't think it's that bad, actually. I do think I'm still doing. I would not, if I was truly that bad off, I would not still be working on stuff like this. And we have. Oh, I didn't even see it. My bad. Oh, I'm sorry. I got to be better about that. That's the one thing I need to. I need to keep I still am getting used to this, trust me. I'm not used to the whole ad break thing. Should have given a warning. Sorry. I apologize. I'll take my own little break, and then we'll probably go a little bit longer. I'll go for at least 30 more minutes. I'll work on this until the end of stream, and then I think I'll call it. I got some good stuff done today. I think I did much better this week than I did last week. That's for damn sure. And then after this, I got to do more. I actually have to do more drawing. There's a couple things I gotta do. I'm so backed up on work. That's a good thing, right? Better to have things to do than nothing. Better to be completely inundated than constantly not having nothing to do. Sometimes you just gotta work on shit. To be fair, one of those things I gotta do is for a monetary value. It does take a little bit of precedent, so I'm just doing this to make sure that I'm on the rest of my projects. But hey, gotta hand it to the literal weirdest idle game I've ever seen to kind of inspire me to be like, sometimes a friendly reminder out there, if you just are feeling like stuck in a spot, especially creatively, it is, I think it's anyone's goal who's making things to want to be able to do it as something that they want to do to sustain themselves. And I kind of have a hot take. Sometimes you still just have to do it. And I'm not saying I think you should be working towards that point. I think everyone who has an interest in making things should be working towards the point that it is doing something for them. Sometimes you just gotta say, fuck it. Sometimes you just gotta say fuck it and just keep doing things. Just keep making things. Don't stop making things. I hate that I did this during an ad break. I'll try to lead it out of the ad break. Cause like, honestly, do make it for you first with the goal that it will do something more. But oftentimes, the biggest thing that keeps anyone from doing anything is usually yourself. That's not to say that other factors can't apply, but you sometimes just gotta say, fuck it. You know, I might not be making literally any money off of this, but it shouldn't keep you from making stuff. That idle game literally concluded with somebody admitting that they were stuck a little bit and just were at a certain point working on the project because they didn't have. Also, welcome back anyone who had ads. Hope they weren't awful. Sometimes working on something because it keeps you working on something can turn around into something that you can make work for you. But really, ultimately, you just end up finding the things you want to work on. Yep, we did that last night, actually. We did it! My friend who played that game for 4 years, we read the entire story out, and that'll be available. That should be actually launched on YouTube now. So if you want to hear the entire story, yeah, it launched at noon, or it should have launched at noon. If you want to hear the entire story of NGU Idol, yeah, that is we did that last night. It took 5 hours, but to be fair, I think when we realized how much longer it was going to take, we really stepped up our speed. If we were going faster, we probably could have done it in 4. But I don't think I understood, and Jackson did not realize that there was a lot more in that game than we expected. And fair enough, you know? Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is think about less of what you can get out of something and think about less of what something can produce for you and think more about what it means to do it. And that's where I'm at a little bit on everything that I'm doing. Is like, I want this to continue to grow and I want it to continue to do things, but I don't want to do anything if I care more about what it is accomplishing than what it means to do it at all. Now, granted, that isn't easy. It's very difficult. I have to remind myself all the time. But hey, I live on a foundation of the bedrock of I I can do this to an audience of 0 to infinity. I can. And that I will say, all I will say on top of that is thank you, it's not an audience of 0. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is, and I have to remind myself it's okay if it's an audience of 0. It actually is. I founded all of this on the idea that I can ramble. I can ramble. That is one of the things I can do is I can fucking ramble. Like an audience of 0, an audience of a minimum audience is not required for me to do anything. It isn't. I think that is a tough spot that I think sometimes people get trapped in, and it's totally understandable. What's the point in doing anything if you're not doing it for anyone? And I maybe am in the lucky position that I have convinced myself, to a certain extent, that am I really doing it for me if I have to care that much when the only person who's present is me? Ultimately, sometimes the only person present is me when I'm making stuff, when I'm doing stuff. So I appreciate that. Because there is a little bit of that dread, that existential dread that happens sometimes when you're working on a project, when you're working on anything, doing anything, where it's like, where is everybody? I have to remember that that's not the reason why I do this. That is not the reason why I do this. It never has been, and it never will be. I do this for the people who can join. And I do this for the people who do enjoy watching it. I do this for when people can join, and I do it for in such a way that if you can't, you still can enjoy it some way, shape, or form. If you're here listening, that's all that matters to me. Somewhere. If you're listening to it now, if you're listening to this in the future, you're out there listening to this. That's all that matters to me. I will scream in the void until I can't scream no more. That's where I'm at, and that's where I'm gonna go. You'll excuse me. I need to figure out. Oh, that's why. God damn it. Honestly, I need to merge this down. The idea I'm going with this is just make it clear that the background is darker, much less exposed. Darken it a little bit. One thing I've definitely learned a lot better, my artwork in general, is that sometimes you just gotta put media down, work it around. You gotta put media down and then work it around. Put it down and work it around. What I say. Talk more on Mothership, though. Continue talking about the rules that I really, really am excited about personally. Is also I've done it is very rife for a lot of homebrew, right? So I've like done a lot of work to try to kind of like recontextualize and re-add some of the elements that I do think that the game doesn't initially have, but it can work for it. I think that sometimes the best thing about tabletop in my experience is like being able to be able to create game mechanics. I think being able to create game mechanics in a game is super super important for making what tabletop does best. Like oftentimes games don't have all the game mechanics that you need to be able to tell the story that you want, but they're flexible enough that you can actually implement those game mechanics where you need them to be. And I like that. I think the best systems do that. Not all of them do that, but I think the best systems do actually do something like that. So I've done a lot of work, kind of like both add and utilize some of the source material, because actually the source material does do a good job of having some really good mechanisms for certain things that are going to become very important very early on, I feel like. Great for me. Terrible for my players. Oh, ho, ho. I also am the thing I really like about the wound table as well is that it goes both ways. The wound table actually goes both ways. They do a very good job of making it clear that anything that can happen to you, you should also design on some level to be able to happen to the opposition that they're playing against. And it really works, especially for this, because one of the things that I think is really cool, but kind of a missed opportunity in Dead Space, and again, I wanted to like kind of make more of an implication in this setting is that the whole concept of dismemberment is like super brutal, and it's like, whoa, you gotta tear apart your enemies and feel like you're really viscerally fighting for your life. Except in Dead Space, it ends up devolving into just shoot the weak spot. That's really what it does feel like, in my opinion. I feel like Dead Space kind of falters a little bit into the point that you just feel like you're just going through the motions after a certain point where you shoot the part that cuts and then you're good and that's what you do. Whereas this, given the randomity of the kind of like wounding system, I want it to be more flexible and that the wounds actually have an effect on what you're fighting. Like when you wound something, it does matter to them, but in a way that's not the same as it matters to you. But technically speaking, based on the way that it works, is that the creature design in the game does also suffer from an amount of wounding, and that they should suffer the same kind of like wounding effects that your players do when they get injured. So a lot of the things that I want to be able to focus on is be able to make it feel a lot more in a certain sense like when they injure the creatures that they are like ripping and tearing them apart if they're using stuff like that, and that like when that there are very like clear weaknesses, like they're going to be pretty obvious weaknesses, and I think they'll be able to pick on it pretty fast if they've seen literally any if they've seen Alien, they'll know. It'll be pretty obvious, I feel like. Though I find it funny. They talk about in the movie that I love how famous the flamethrower got in Alien, because in a certain sense you never see, and even in Aliens you never see it be effective. You never see if it works or not. You just know they use it because they assume that a flamethrower should be good. you never actually see it work. You never actually see it do anything. Um, but I mean, it makes sense. So I'm gonna grant it to them that if my players light anything on fire, something definitely is gonna happen. And I don't think I'll make a fucking no, unless it's like a special one. I don't think. I think it'll be like, oh yeah, there. I definitely will lean into more of the thing. What's funny is I think the thing did a better job with its flamethrower than Alien ever did. I think Alien has a flamethrower and they assume that it will do something, but you never actually see if it does anything. Which I like about that, by the way. I think that's something that's not really. I don't think people think about that. That the alien flamethrower, it's never made clear if it actually is useful or if it does anything at all for them. Kind of going for a graphite look here at this point. Which, if I am, really. Hey, look, graphite. No, I don't want a graphite blending. What do I have this on right now? This is on pencil. And I don't want to smooth it. I have it on literally something called pencil, and I don't know what. And there's charcoal pencil, which is usually pretty good. These are halftones. Prime media. Scratchy pencil. Rough pencil. Rough pencil. Oh, I'm at 14. That's why I'm like, why is this not doing anything? There it goes. Mainly, I just need to diffuse some of these spots a little bit. I feel like I forget about blending tools sometimes, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that, can't I? Because really, oh, I see what it did. That's very silly. Ideally, I should use this to apply a little bit of medium, like this. Especially if I'm going for a graphite look here. Apply a little bit medium at a time. Then switch it over to this. Use. Oh, go ahead and put that up. Yeah, yeah. Not that big. A little bit bigger. Graphite as a medium is a wild medium because it works more like painting from what I've seen. You're like dusting, which is wild to me. Effectively, you're doing more dusting than you're doing anything else. And just kind of moving the medium around until it goes to the places that you actually want it to. That there. This to about half. I'm gonna do something like this. Like that. Really rough. Hey, Comfy! Yeah! And then you just go ham. Then you just go ham. Man, I really feel like I'm clicking on today, though. Man, I last week still am kind of kicking myself just because it was like, man, I wish I was more. I wish last week I could have been more on it, but it happens. Welcome. Probably near the end. In fact, probably should be wrapping up soon, but I appreciate it. Got lots of stuff I gotta do. I gotta do so much stuff. But it was good. I got some good stuff today. Like I've learned my lesson with this especially. I was getting way too in my head, I think a little bit on being like I gotta get this done, I gotta get this done, I gotta get this done. When actually what finally helped was being like, no, I need to get done what I need for this project, which is to share that I'm working on a project. That is what I needed to get done. And I got way too focused on the like I need to make sure to get specific things done, and no, I didn't. Turns out I didn't. So now I'm focused more on like moving forward. Whatever turns into an asset, this is actually for promo first. Like this is just to keep me inspired, to keep me working and thinking like what I want to do with the setting, what things look like in the setting, and as well as to explore the setting while I'm working on it, with you guys. And less to be like, this is gonna be a functional thing. Like, actually, no. I was putting way too much pressure on thinking that I was gonna get that done. But ultimately, I need this as a reference point more than anything else. Uh-huh. He'll steal your liver. Actually, all that he does, that's all he wants. Puts you... They actually incapacitate you, and then all they do is they take your kidneys. That's it. Actually, it's a complete misunderstanding. Not to say that you want your kidneys stolen, but they don't actually want to hurt you or nothing. They just want to take your kidneys. They don't want to kill you. They'll leave you with one good kidney. Uh-huh. Exactly. It's all a big misunderstanding, actually. And this is also something I just want it to be more of a thing anyways with the project going forward, is I want there to be much more of a focus on making just promotional artwork for it to like both try to hype people up and get them excited for it, and like have more of a focus on the thing that I'm doing, which is the art. It is the artwork. It is artwork. Like it doesn't have to be discrete scenes. It's just there to get people hyped, to get a sense of the tone, to get an idea of what it's going to do, where the piece is going. And I kind of like this aesthetic I've settled on of like being very graphite. I really like it actually. I didn't think I would. I wanted something stylized no matter what, but I didn't think that this was the stylization I would go for. Also means it's less work. I don't have to color anything. Haha. It's not an excuse. Little bit of a love me a good. Always love me a good. Yeah, I like how that looks. Probably do this for a little bit longer. Pull it. I think that's the right choice I made, is to focus on this more on the the promotional art element of it rather than the functional art element of it. It was becoming stressful for me, when in reality I just needed to be exactly what it is to be like, hey, this is a thing that I'm working on. This is a thing that I'm doing. You want to see the end result. This is when we're going to be doing it. Really, it's been fun. It's been fun to work on. It really has. Really enjoyed working on it quite a bit, in fact. As you could tell, I do still like Dead Space, because this is very Dead Space. Add those highlights. Gotta add those highlights. Gotta add those highlights. Gotta add highlights. Give a little bit more. I do find it funny though, like even working on that other spot, like this is also very much like I actually learned this probably more from my science illustration. Like what I'm doing right here is much more science illustration. Turns out learning science illustration really impacted my science fiction. Science. Sense. This also just looks better, I think. This is much more appealing. This is much more appealing probably to watch, much more appealing result. It allows me to get much more definitive work done, to be like, this is what I'm working on. Check it out. 202. Okay. Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, I think that's good. Now I get to test out my new. Yeah, I'm gonna use that, I think. Yeah, I'm gonna use that, I think. I like that. That's a cool signature. I like the way that comes through, too. That looks good. Alright, I'm gonna call it there. It was good though. It was much better than last week. I feel like I actually got shit done, um, which is a good feeling. It's a good feeling, believe it or not. When you feel like you actually accomplished something, damn, feels good. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna start closing up my stuff. We're gonna do one more thing, of course, at the end of every stream. I go ahead and open up. I'm gonna open up Paint, and then we're gonna make a prompt together. If you want to participate in chat, all you got to do is type in chat. Whatever chat says uses a reference. I'll add to the prompt, and then I have to draw a picture based on that prompt in Paint. So let me. You guys want to start now? I'm going to unfuck my setup first. Gotta put everything away, and then I'm gonna open my shit. This is what I have to do. I do it every time. Oh no, I did it in the wrong order. Oh no, I forgot to wear my glove. I have to wear my fancy drawing glove more. It does help. Perfect. All right. All right. All right. Let's see. The space is scary because it's empty. Well, I know what I'm going to do with that, but if you want to participate, go ahead and type in chat. I'm going to open up my stuff. If you guys don't add anything to it, I'll have to draw what I just said. And I know what I'm going to draw. Oh, I know what I'm going to draw. Let me see. Let me see. Got that, and now I have to open Paint. Oh, it's in the right one. I'm going to do something. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to cheat a little bit. There we go. And then I got to draw. I got to draw it. Let me make sure I got that right. Oh, I see. That's very stupid. We'll do it that way just in case. Let me put on a timer. We turn on the timer. Perfect. Wonderful. I hope this makes sense. Wonderful. Space. Scary because it's space. It's scary. It's scary because it's space. It's scary because it's space. All right. Stick around to the very end if you want to see that picture. I also do a bit of a closing bit. We do raid after every stream, so that way the daywalkers in our chat can keep watching. Just make sure to go unlock your doors and windows, because it's no longer lunchtime for daywalkers. Thank you for joining, everybody. Hope you had a good time and you enjoyed the show. If you're able to join the live show, thank you for stopping by, chatting, and watching. If you're watching this in the future, thank you for taking the time to go back and rewatching the VOD. We appreciate it. If you're out there and you enjoyed this and you want to see more of what we're up to, I recommend scrolling down below and following or clicking any of the links. Clicking any links, there's a link to an Instagram, a Facebook, a Twitter, and a Discord. We post when we go live on any one of those platforms, as well as anything else that we're up to. And just generally, you can come hang out with the rest of the community there. Good time on the Discord. Speaking of which, shout out to our community there and everyone who follows. You guys are a wonderful audience and we appreciate you. If we do anything particularly entertaining or noteworthy, feel free to clip it and share it on the internet. Just make sure also hashtag with MCCanary or link it back to the stream so people can find more of the good stuff we do here. If you want to see the stream grow, you gotta let people know. I appreciate that people have been talking about the stream, and I encourage you guys to do it more. It does help us out, and it's just super rad that you guys have been willing to do that. So go tell people about the stream. Go tell your friends about the stream. I won't. And as always, a huge thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon, Coffee, and Twitch. Your generosity allows us to continue to expand the stream as well as take on more projects, and the stream would not be made possible without viewers like you, so we thank you. If you want to see your name added to this list, as well as a couple of benefits you get, you could always subscribe directly on Twitch or check out the Patreon page here, the Patreon page or the coffee here. I could do both. That'll show you everything that you can get, and any amount is always appreciated. Once again, thank you. Thank you to Mods doing a wonderful job holding back the robot and preventing becoming famous. Just thank you for coming and hanging out, everybody. Hope you had a good time. I'm super excited. Look forward to October. I'm looking forward to October. Whatever happens, October, the first Friday of October, something's gonna happen. Something's gonna happen. I'll get you through housekeeping and get you on your way. Check out the rest of our friends in Goblin Entertainment here. That link tree has links to everyone's channels and everything that they've done and they've been up to, and the rest of my stuff here, which has everything that I post to, so go check everybody out. Goblin Entertainment. And Brad Vickers is playing a survival horror game. He's playing, apparently, a Resident Evil clone for the X-Files that I didn't know existed. Which is very silly. So, everybody go say hi to him. He's a good guy. Otherwise, have yourselves a good afternoon. Take it easy. And remember, if you go to space, it's scary. Because space is empty. Oh, that's even more terrifying than I meant to make it look. Wait. Oh, that's what I clicked. I was like, what the hell? I didn't mean to make it look this scary. It wasn't supposed to look this scary. That's space, guys. This is space. Awful. Only cheated a little bit because I made the background black. Also, if you go in space, don't go without a helmet. This is not good. This is not a good position to be in. It's bad for everyone.